Welcome to the March 13th Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Board meeting. We do have a quorum. We will start with introductions. I am Dennis Heisey, your chair for PPACG and a county commissioner.
Mark Snyder, Mayor of Manitou Springs, and according to that, second vice chair.
Now we know, or now you know.
There was an election. You won.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good morning, Rob McDonald, Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments.
Darrell Glenn, El Paso County Commissioner.
Mark Dwalaby, Park County Commissioner.
Nikki McDonald, Mayor of Palmer Lake.
Jim Dahl, Public Transportation Representative.
Alan Creeley, the first vice chair of the CAC.
Dave Turley, Mayor of Woodland Park.
Good morning, Norm Steen, Teller County Commissioner.
Sally Clark, El Paso County Commissioner and Secretary.
Randy Williams, Council Member, City of Colorado Springs, and according to my name tag, I'm the first vice chair.
Let's go back to the coffee crowd because they're liable to seat themselves here momentarily. Wayne, that would be you.
Wayne.
Yes, same time. Wayne Williams, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder.
A Bronco fan.
Stevens, trustee.
He's got a name tag.
But Wayne's not drinking coffee.
Jacqueline,
He said coffee crowd. I knew it wasn't
you're part of the crowd back there.
Rich Muzzy, PPACG Environmental Program.
Kate Hatton, Military Backline Program Manager.
Greg Gasper, Transportation Director.
And before we move beyond that, Dallas?
Dallas Jameson, Policy and Communications Advisor.
Guy Dufresne Silvera, Director of the Area Agency on Aging.
And Dallas turned and looked. I should have known she was multitasking. Then back out to the audience.
Bill Gamble, Chair of the Regional Advisory Committee.
Doug Lawler, CDOT Region 2.
Mark Andrew, CDOT.
Ray Kruger, Amblicam.
Wendy Pettit, CDOT Region 2.
Michael Snow, CDOT Transportation Development.
Wayne Pittman, CDOT Region 2.
Amy Johnson, Colorado Springs Utility.
Connie King, Environmental Attorney representing Cherokee Metropolitan District.
Pat Ellis, Silver Key.
Craig Blewett, City of Colorado Springs and Mountain Metropolitan Transit.
David Menton, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metropolitan Transit.
Kathleen Krager, Colorado Springs Traffic Engineer.
Tamara Lefter, CPN Line Incorporated.
Donley, Donley and Associates Inc. Matt Foster, Environmental Attorney for Tri-Lake Sanitation District.
Beverly Mayaski, PPACG. Lisa Diaz, PPACG and AAA.
Ryan Cooley.
Emily Lindsay, PPACG. Victoria Chavez, El Paso County.
Dave Bob, CDOT Region 2.
Is that everyone?
The ones that just walked in.
And the dignitaries that are arriving?
Jerry Howells.
Tom Ronan, CDOT Region 2. Travis Easton, Monument.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda?
None that we have.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Item number 3 is public comment. We have a resolution of appreciation for Major General Joseph Anderson, who we do not expect to be joining us for this resolution.
They're so important, we assume he'd be here.
However, we would like to read the resolution into the record, and then we will get this to him. Resolution by the Pikes Peak Council of Governments Board of Directors acknowledging appreciation to 4th Infantry Division and Fort Carson Commanding General Major General Joseph Anderson, March 13, 2013. Whereas Major General Joseph Anderson assumed command of the 4th Infantry Division in Fort Carson on November 16, 2011, and whereas General Anderson and his Fort Carson leadership team have been valuable community partners for the Pikes Peak region, and whereas General Anderson has provided excellent support for the Fort Carson Regional Growth Plan and the Peak Military Care Network, and whereas General Anderson has served Fort Carson soldiers and families and the Pikes Peak region with distinction, and whereas on March 14, 2013, General Anderson will change command to a new commanding general and move to a new assignment. Now be it therefore resolved, the Board of Directors wishes to acknowledge its deepest gratitude to Major General Joseph Anderson for his commitment to the soldiers and family members and the communities of the Pikes Peak region and his support to the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. Resolved, approved, and adopted by the Board of Directors of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments this 13th day of March 2013 at Colorado Springs, Colorado. Dennis Heisey, Chair, attested by Sally Clark, Secretary.
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor?
Here, here.
Aye.
Opposed?
Here, here. Ooh.
Kate, I don't know if you'll be delivering this to him, but Rob,
I'll see him tomorrow.
let him know that it passed unanimously.
Flying colors.
There we go. You would hand that on.
We'll just object to him leaving, that's the only thing.
That's true. Item B, other items, public comment items. Is there anyone in the audience who has an item they would like to bring before this body that is not on today's agenda? Well, I think perhaps we may have one here at the board level. Rob?
Sure. Let me pass that. Occasionally during this item, we like to recognize some of the PPACG staff when they do some outstanding things. And sometimes we surprise them. This one, I think, will be a surprise. I don't think Craig has got word of this one yet, but he does now. So while he's figuring out what the surprise is, the Women's Transportation Seminar in Colorado recently named Craig and Brett Waters from City of Colorado Springs Emergency Management. They awarded them the Best Small Project of the Year for the evacuation plan for Waldo Canyon and other areas. It wasn't just evacuating Waldo Canyon. It was an evacuation plan, but it really came into play during the Waldo Canyon fire. So that group said thank you and congratulations to Craig, and we thought the board could also do the same. So what we did, we have a framed version of the article from the Gazette with the board members that signed around the edges. So congratulations, Craig.
I didn't see that back there. Where's Dallas with the camera?
Here, I'll take one with my iPad.
Where would you like us, camera
Right here. Oh.
folk, right here?
I'll get on the other side. We'll surround them.
If you came in late or have not had the
Yeah, I
chance
could
to
just-
sign this yet, please do that before you leave the meeting.
Move a little this way so that the little circle's not in your head.
It looks like a halo then.
Well, you guys need to trade places.
Yeah.
Okay, big smile. And one more. Good, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. How about we do?
It'll be a small charge.
If you would drop that off with Mayor Howells, and maybe we can make sure we get everybody.
I did sign it.
Oh, you did? Okay, if Dallas tells you, somebody else needs to. Always good to have staff recognized for their achievements. That plan would have sat in a dusty file somewhere for years, and we'd have all been very happy, but it was sure good to have it in the file when we needed it. So well done. Item number 4, our consent items. Does anyone have any of the consent items that they would like to discuss? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, committee reports. Transportation Advisory Committee. Dave?
Good morning. David Mentor, Transit Planning Supervisor, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metropolitan Transit. I'm the TAC Chair. Just a couple of items to note today that are in your packet. We discussed at the TAC meeting the enhanced NHS recommendations. We did have some concern with the CDOT. What CDOT was going to determine would be less than the number of NHS roadways that we wanted as a region, we thought, and that this is especially important to the City of Colorado Springs. You've got that coming up on your agenda. And then also with the revenue projections for the statewide totals, that's coming up here on your agenda. We thought the midline approach would probably be sufficient for the region, and we didn't see an additional need to increase the amount of money. We didn't anticipate any additional money, so we thought that was the better probably projected level of funding that we should be going for, and that's coming up. Also on the ramp workshops, this is another important item for the region. We were generally supportive of the projects that are listed that you'll be discussing here today. And it's also very important, especially to the City of Colorado Springs. On the 5310 designated recipient, we will be looking at a proposal at the next TAC meeting that will be coming forward in the future. So if you have any questions.
Questions for Dave?
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Community Advisory Committee. You're not Jim.
No, I'm not Jim. Alan Creeley. I'm a citizen at large to the committee and the first vice chairman. Jim is away today. We had some really good items that came up before the CAT, and we were kind of excited about those, including Mr. Godfrey being now on the RTA board. We thought that was good. The CDOT intercity bus service that you'll hear about again on your agenda, that was a high item for us as well. And the small area forecast, somehow I've been appointed to it, and one other person. I don't know exactly sure how that took place, but I'm there. And then we had just as a second to what you said about Craig Casper, for those of us who did have to evacuate the fire. I got out about 10 minutes before the fire struck my house. It worked. And my wife's safety and mine largely due to Craig's wonderful advice. We did get on a good item. We heard about the CDOT project. He briefed us on the CDOT projects. And you know, at the CAC, we often do little things. We move money from tip to on and on and on, some of which we know, some of which we don't know. But having had a summary of those projects was really helpful. And sir, I hope we get more of those. To knowing how much money has been spent, what's left, how well we're doing was, I thought, really helpful to us. And then we came to the angst issue. The angst issue was the Regional Transportation Plan revenue projections scenarios. I went through that thing, and it was knowing that this was an Everett Dirksen moment. You know, a few billion here, a few billion there. We're talking serious money. And after about an hour, I woke myself up again and tried again, and that sort of feeling was throughout the CAC when we discussed this issue. This is real money. We didn't know. We were lost. Frankly, we were lost. We understand our responsibilities to report, to give you our best advisement possible on all these issues. In the end, we accepted whatever the TAC said, knowing full well that we're non-elected, non-technical people. We just sort of bailed out and accepted that. You can consider our vote a positive vote for whatever it was that we voted for, a really soft yes, because we're not really sure. So that's what I have. Is there any questions to our angst moments or our good moments? And I apologize for jumping the introduction issue.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Advisory Council. Welcome, Bill.
Good morning. I'm Bill Gamble, the chair for the RAC, supporting the AAA. The RAC met on February 28th for its annual review or acceptance of reports from all the providers that we support in El Paso, Teller, and Park counties. This was an informative meeting where all the providers just reviewed what they had done the past year and reviewed the support that the AAA had provided. Well received. There was no decisions to be made at this meeting. This is the annual informational meeting that the providers come and tell us what they're doing with the support we give them. There was an overall support and praise for the AAA and the support that it provides for these 3 counties that we support, and there were no issues.
Oh, always good to hear, and there were no issues.
Well, issues of needs, but again, those issues were not to be decided at this meeting. This was the annual, and it was a public meeting as well. We had many people from the public come to attend just to learn and get information. And it was certainly helpful for many of the RAC members, especially the new ones who had not known or experienced what the providers do. So,
Questions for Mr. Gamble? Thank you, sir. D, CCOST for at least 1 more month. Coordination Committee on Specialized Transportation. Pat Ellis.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We had several, the minutes are in your packet, but there were a couple of items that we had a lot of discussion about. One was Andy Garten presented the competitive process from the City of Colorado Springs, and we talked a lot about that, and as a result of that, a subcommittee, or not really a subcommittee, but a working group got together and made some recommendations to Transit, which they're taking a look at now to incorporate in that process. And then we also had some discussion around the Joint Dispatch and Call Center. And as many of you know, this all started out with ACT. And, you know, ACT really did a lot of good things to get this rolling. And it kind of worked itself out of a job, which isn't always a bad thing for a nonprofit. But in the spirit of the grants that Silver Key now has regarding the Joint Dispatch and Call Center, it's supposed to be a collaborative effort and should be in a neutral location. So we were having some discussion about possibly recommending that once the call center is up and running, that some consideration be given to it being housed at PPACG. So that had a lot of discussion as well. We aren't coming with a recommendation yet at this point, but we are discussing that. So, any questions about that?
Questions for Ms. Ellis?
Thank you.
Thank you. And my comment, by the way, about for at least 1 more month is there's discussion about changing their name, not making them go away. So. 5E, Water Quality Management Committee. Welcome.
Hi. I'm not Mike Wicklund.
I was ready to say Mike, and you stood up. I better wait.
I'm Ginny Johnson, and I work in the Environmental Services Department at Utilities. And Rich, since I'm the first vice chair, and this is one of my responsibilities I recently learned, when Mike's not here, he wanted me to tell you a little bit about what the committee worked on at our last meeting. And right now we're working on a lot of water quality issues. The Arkansas River Basin hearing is coming up in June. And we considered 2 local proposals and approved 2 local proposals. One was by Cherokee Metro District to resegment is it Black Squirrel? Middle Arkansas. Segment 4C, based on a study that they did regarding the aquatic life that exists in that segment, and to address appropriate standards for what exists in that segment. The other proposal was by Tri-Lakes, and it was to propose standards for copper that are based on what is called a biotic ligand model, which is a lot of science that results in a more appropriate standard for a portion of segment 6, which is Monument Creek. And the committee agreed to support those proposals. Additionally, we have formed, under the leadership of Rich Muzzy, a group called AFCURE, which is the Arkansas Fountain Coalition for Urban River Evaluation. And it's a group currently of 12 dischargers that was created to address water quality issues in these basins. And right now we're working on some issues that will be addressed at the basin hearing, including the new nutrient standards and temperature standards that will be implemented in the basin. And there are several other issues that the state has proposed in the basin that we'll be addressing, and it's great because the dischargers are all working together on these issues because they impact all of us. So, any questions?
Questions for Ms. Johnson? Thank you. Item number 6, action items. A, we have a CDOT project briefings and ramp project identification, which should be a lot of fun, and Craig's going to tee that up.
Good morning, Craig Casper. This is a multi-part, wow, I don't even know how to open this.
Swiss Army knife, or?
Yeah. Open this.
I had to practice, so.
Okay.
Pretty crafty, huh?
Yeah, tricky. Two-part presentation. The first part, 364 days ago, you all as the PPACG board approved our regional transportation priorities. Once a year we come back, try to revisit those. So CDOT will provide an update on where they are in regards to the regional priority projects. And second part of the presentation is that CDOT has also developed a program to accelerate projects. They've got $300 million a year for a 5-year period. That is money. It's not new money. It's money to accelerate existing projects. And they are going through a project application process for that. And we will have a discussion about which projects you all would desire our region to apply for. And so I'll start off with somewhere. Yep, there we go. Okay. And I don't know who's going to be first. There you go.
Rob?
And while they're coming up for the board to find on your desk, we put the resolution you passed 363 days ago, 4 days ago, that have the list of priorities that you'll see some of the familiar ones as Dave starts his presentation.
Yes, good morning. I'm Dave Wadham, resident engineer.
Can I interrupt you just a minute?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Hey, you're on.
Sorry about that. Tom Rona, Region 2, CDOT. I just wanted to start out by saying, Dave's got an overview. He wants to cover some projects, but before he gets into that, I just wanted to, if I could clarify briefly, several of the projects that Dave's will be covering are actually part of some various efforts that we have underway at CDOT. And briefly, one of those is the Old Branch Road project on State Highway 21. And specifically, the city has asked us to advance that project for them with a payback, a payback over several years out of the RTA funds that they'd receive. So to let you know just how the funding set aside on some of these and the efforts that are underway. Now, this project is proposed to move forward, but we've yet to have an intergovernmental agreement executed and a Transportation Commission approval. We've got a couple other projects that fall into an effort that's running parallel to RAMP. It's outside of RAMP, but it's accelerating projects that are in the STIP that are fully funded in the STIP, where the money is in the outer years, and we're going to bring that forward. And the plan is to build those projects sooner than later. And we have a list that we've brought forward, and they're on. Some of these projects are the ones Dave will be updating us on. Once again, the list is. I've submitted a list. It has yet to be formally approved by the Transportation Commission, but this is the direction that we're planning to take with these projects. So they're outside of the RAMP application projects. I'm trying to separate these out so the waters aren't quite so muddy here when we start talking about possible RAMP projects for selection. And these two projects that Dave will cover, one of them is the I-25 Fillmore interchange and the widening on State Highway 21 on Powers Boulevard from Fountain to Airport Stewart. So I just wanted to get that up front to hopefully eliminate some confusion.
I suspect since this is a CDOT presentation, Dave won't give you too much grief should you decide to interrupt somewhere along the way.
I certainly won't. Mark Andrew will be giving some of the presentation, as will Wayne Pittman. They sometimes might, but we'll see.
We have a question here. Mayor?
Tom, I'm curious when you bring up these Colorado Springs projects, and here we're talking about our regional priority list, you say you didn't want to muddy the waters, but I'm curious why that came up in this context now. Are you just briefing us on some, because I mean every entity's free to work with CDOT on projects and however they want to do it, but were you implying that those projects were somehow in this queue, or am I missing something?
Those are projects that have been identified in the STIP,
Okay.
the ones that I've listed. So they have been prioritized by this group. That doesn't mean that STIP could be somehow changed, but we've identified those through staff and other folks that those are high priority projects that could move forward, and they seem to be a good fit. I mean, if the board decides otherwise, as an MPO, that we're headed in the wrong direction, please let us know. We see it as an opportunity to build and to address some of your major critical needs in the area much sooner than was originally planned.
Thank you.
Another question. Council member.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that these dollars are coming out of the RAMP program, does it? It's just a project that you're mentioning that's being brought forward sooner rather than later, because we're going to pay it back with RTA funds, so it doesn't necessarily have anything directly to do with the RAMP program, does it?
It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the formal program that's been established. It's outside of that program, and the only one that really has the payback of any of those that I'm talking about through the RTA is the old ranch.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Well, that's the way it's being proposed to be funded and set up at this time.
We're having some new terminology with the RAMP program as that's being developed, and you're going to see, as Rob's mentioned, the projects that have been identified over the past 364 days, as Rob and Tom have mentioned, are priority projects that are predominantly listed on the strategic corridor list back from the Senate Bill 1 days. So we're talking I-25 and Powers Boulevard. If the board chooses, we can briefly discuss the Waldo Canyon Fire Mitigation Project. When we developed the PowerPoint presentation, this was to discuss and brief the board and its committees on kind of the status on where we're at with some of the priority projects that have been in front of the board for the past several months. As I mentioned, you're going to have 3 engineers speaking, myself, Mark Andrew, on the Powers Boulevard and on the Fillmore project update, and Wayne Pittman is here to give a briefing and an update on the status of I-25 North widening that's underway. We're going to call those the introductions. The Fillmore DDI, again, that'll be Mark Andrew. Old Ranch Road is a project that we're looking at accelerating. That's part of the current STIP, but there's also a possibility of having RTA pay back those funds, and there's some discussion about whether or not that could be used as a match for the RAMP program with the I-25 Cimarron Interchange project. So those are opportunities that folks are trying to explore to make the RAMP program a success. Powers widening and Stewart Interchange, that'll be Mark Andrew. Wayne Pittman is here to talk about I-25 North. They're well underway, and I'll cover the last 2 bullets there with the Cimarron Interchange and how we're moving forward, and then the Waldo Canyon Fire Mitigation, if that's something the board would like to hear about briefly. Those are the projects we've mentioned. I-25 US 24, Cimarron Interchange, that will be one of the RAMP applications that we're making for $95 million. US 24, 8th Street Interchange, that will be something we are beginning to look at from a design standpoint and minimize throwaway. It's not part of the original RAMP application. We're anticipating that to be $95 million, but as future years come together, that's certainly been one of the priority areas that the board's made it clear that they're interested in making sure that 24 and 8th Street stays on the on our radar, and we will be looking into that and making sure that we're not precluding options as we move forward with I-25 Cimarron. Yeah.
When you said 95 on US 24 Cimarron, that means the full project?
I-25 Cimarron interchange is a full project. That would be from, and I'll talk about the project limits on that, but that would be the full project.
Oh, boy.
That's an additional 50 to 60 million for the US 24 8th Street, which would be another phase or a secondary project to that.
State Highway 21 Power 6-lane widening Fountain to Platte. That would be one of the accelerated STIP projects, so that's not part of the ramp program, but one of the accelerated projects that we're trying to move forward and bring later funding years to fruition today. Similar with the Powers Stewart Avenue interchange, State Highway 21 Powers North extension. Mark will talk about that. And then the I-25 6-lane widening from Interquest Parkway. Again, that'll be Wayne Pittman. And then the DDI at Fillmore. Mark?
Thanks, Dave. Mark Andrew with CDOT. As Dave alluded to, with Fillmore, what we're looking at is accelerating some of the money we already have in the STIP to fund this. We're looking at using a combination of funds, potential bridge on-system funds, with maybe some combination of faster safety for fiscal year 14. So it's kind of a hodgepodge. That's yet to be determined, but what we think we can do is fund that by this summer. So our current schedule is to complete the design and advertise it by August and have it ready for construction by either October. More than likely we'll start in December. We expect that we'll probably complete that project in about a year. So we're looking at a December 2014. We're looking at a current cost of around $11 million. And, briefly, I did want to show you kind of a model of what it's going to look like. So essentially the DDI, diverging diamond interchange, shifts traffic from one side of the road to the other and allows for free flow movements of left turns onto and off the interstate. So the nice thing about the interchange is it really functions as two intersections with really two phases at each intersection. What this does is it improves the level of service through the intersection. And so what we'll end up with, for the same amount of lane width that we currently have, we'll end up with a project that can move traffic through much more efficiently. Now, it will be two bridges. We'll be separated by about a 30-foot span between the bridges. What's interesting about the pedestrian movements, we'll run the pedestrians down the middle of the bridge rather than on the outside. And we're doing this because it minimizes the conflict points. In addition to that, we'll also have bike lanes for each direction through the interchange on Fillmore. The notorious on and off ramps on the north side are non-standard, so we're looking at extending those as well. Again, we can do this for around $11 million. The original price tag for the interchange for a single point that was proposed in the environmental document was running about $40 million. And again, the reason simply because we don't have to lower I-25. We can condense the bridge, shift the bridge further downstream on I-25, and not have to interfere with the grade on I-25. That was the big cost for the EA design, the old single point design. This does work with the realignment of Chestnut Street that's currently scheduled to be completed this year. We will have a section between the city's project at Chestnut and our project where we'll have some minimum throwaway where we have to match their grades. So we've been coordinating well with the city on this project, and it will go out not as a design bid, but a design bid build. So again, we're looking at completing the design this August and have it ready to go. Again, we think we can fund it this year with a construction start date this fall. So,
Councilmember Williams?
I just want to clarify for the audience and everyone at the table. Chestnut will then only become a north-south street in that intersection. You will not be able to go east and west once you get to Chestnut. Is that correct?
Chestnut will be a north-south street. It's moving further up the hill.
Right. The connections will be not at that intersection.
Correct. So it'll be about 500 to 600 feet back to the west.
For the west. Okay.
So we'll go back. Sorry for that interruption.
Like those graphics, Mark. You didn't show as many cars that are currently out there today, though.
Yeah.
It's still supposed to work with today's and future traffic.
That's because it's so much more efficient. So the Powers widening is really what I call phase one of the Airport Stewart interchange. And what we want to do is widen Powers because we're getting a lot of congestion from Fountain on the south side up to Platte and even south of Platte. But what we think we can do with $10 million is widen to the outside. The current shoulders are actually 12 feet. They're the same width as what we need for lanes. And we just add on shoulders and improve the accel-decel lane with some intersection improvements. One of the things that we want to do as well is improve the entrance into the west gate of Peterson Air Force Base. So we'll do some temporary widening, four-laning, to pick up where Stewart begins just to the west of Powers. So it will be, in that fashion, temporary. The widening on Powers will be permanent. That would be phase one. Phase two would be to come in and complete an interchange in the future. So, again, we're looking at accelerating the STIP. We've got some faster safety funds for fiscal year 15 of around $10 million that really does fit this project well. So that more than likely will be the funding for this project. Talking a little bit about the interchange, we've been closely working with Colorado Springs Airport and Peterson Air Force Base, working with their runway protection zone issues with the future interchange. And what we've come up with for the most cost-effective interchange is another diverging diamond. A little bit different design, but same concept. Again, what we want to do with that interchange is put it on the shelf and have it ready to go this year if funds come available. So essentially the design is complete. We're nearly done with the right-of-way acquisition. We have one more piece to acquire from the airport, and we've got to work out some things with FAA. But those are in the works. Moving on to Old Ranch Road and Powers.
Actually,
sorry, Wayne.
Mr. Chairman, is it okay if we do questions?
Questions as we go, absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. So a couple questions. First, with respect to the airport, obviously owned by City of Colorado Springs, and are things working okay with that acquisition of that last piece of property?
They are, and so the airport actually went through an alternative analysis to look at improving their runways in conjunction with planning for the interchange. So we've been coordinating well with that, and so I think, again, we're going to have all of that resolved here shortly.
Okay. Second question I have for you is the striping right now on northbound Powers coming up to that intersection has a right turn lane that is about 1/10 of the distance of what could be a right turn lane. And because traffic backs up to that intersection, you then have this issue of do cars pull off into what is officially
the shoulder.
The shoulder.
Yep.
Could function very easily as a right turn lane. So I'm Wondering what CDOT's plans are there.
So that shoulder will be the through lane, as we're adding 6 lanes, 3-inch direction, and then we'll add an additional decel lane, and we'll make it to standard, not a short lane. So more than likely it'll be maybe 1,000 feet. So we don't anticipate that affecting the intersection in the future, but it does now.
Okay. And so your plan is that this is being done, just to clarify, this one's being done without any further ramp approval necessary? Is that what CDOT's saying here?
Well, as part of ramp, there's 2 parts. One is the regular ramp program that Tom discussed, and the other one is we're accelerating the STIP. So all the funding in the STIP we're pulling forward to fund projects like this. So, for example, again, this one has $10 million on Powers Boulevard of faster safety funds for fiscal year 15. We won't have that money on a normal basis until a year from now. So what we can do is accelerate it slightly, and we can deliver this project this March or a year from now, about maybe 3 to 6 months ahead of schedule.
Okay. Okay. So we don't need to submit any application or anything?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So the other project Tom talked about is the Old Ranch Road project. Again, this is kind of even a separate issue because we're doing an agreement with actually the City of Colorado Springs with endorsement with Pikes Peak Regional Transportation Authority to take the $8 million planned for fiscal year 15, and CDOT will front that money with a payback from the city in fiscal year 15, 16, 17, and 18 of $2 million each year. So we're going to have to add maybe a little bit of money to that as well. Again, we have some funding on Powers. We think we can fund up to the $9 million.
Let me clarify something, though, at this point, Mark, if I could. You mentioned money that was in the STIP, but actually the money for this project that was in the STIP was transferred over to the I-25 widening from Woodman North to Monument. That was the transfer that was approved by this board months ago. So really, there's no particular funding of CDOT's identified in the STIP at this point for this project. However, the city has proposed the RTA, this be an RTA project. So essentially, we'd build it and then get paid back for it.
Right, Tom. I probably didn't clarify the extra $1 million that we're going to need on top of the 8. We think we have that extra $1 million to back that 8. But yeah, the $10 million that was previously there is no longer there. But we are looking at still backing that funding with an IGA that we want to complete. Have the project ready to go for construction this December. So that says actually 2143. That's actually 2013. And about 6 months later, we'll have it constructed.
Commissioner Glenn?
With the design, is this going to be an underpass?
Powers will go under, Old Ranch will go over.
Okay.
It'll be really a tight urban diamond interchange.
Okay.
So the way I understand it, this money was moved to 4-laning or 3, adding additional lanes to I-25.
Right.
City is going to pay you back, but we took that money. So you're operating on float from other projects till you get the money from the city?
I can't identify exactly where those funds will come from to make it happen. I do know we're sitting on a cash balance at this point, and that's the whole premise of the faster or the ramp effort is to spend that balance down and take advantage of that funding. So,
and we appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, Keith.
So you're going to put Powers as the underpass?
Yeah, the the interchange is really halfway constructed, if you will, because if you've driven through Old Ranch, you have to use the ramps as the through lane. So Powers right now is at the current grade.
Is there going to be adequate drainage?
I'm sorry?
Is there going to be adequate drainage?
Sure.
So we don't end up in a situation like Pueblo and Denver where things fill up?
Yeah, we're not going to have that. In fact, the grade is fairly consistent down to a low point further back to the north. And at that point, it'll collect into the existing drainage. So when we built Powers back in '05, we master planned all the drainage in.
Okay.
We'll have to do some additional water quality improvements, but those are fairly minor.
Okay.
So again, we need to coordinate with the city on this and PPRTA to get the agreement done. One of the projects I did not mention, we're looking at doing something similar to the old and new Meridian intersections out there near Falcon to tag on to the Meridian extension and the Falcon Park and Ride. The county with PPRTA is getting approximately $4 million to do the intersections at old and new Meridian intersections and tag on to that the Falcon Park and Ride. CDOT is looking at maybe backing those funds in the same fashion with an agreement and accelerating the project so we can spend not only their money for Meridian but also the Falcon Park and Ride funding sooner. So that's something we're trying to work out with El Paso County right now as another accelerated project. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dave Watt, and he can brief you on Cimarron Interchange unless there's any other questions. Thank you.
This is I-25 Cimarron Interchange. Recall this is the $6 million that the Transportation Commission allotted, and this board approved a TIP amendment to bring the $6 million from the supplemental funds back in September, I believe. And this is towards developing a shelf project to be ready to spend money, ramp funds as we now call them, in the middle of 2014. We have a design build procurement that is out on the street currently today. An RFP is out where we're hiring some help to develop and put together a blended team that will end up developing this shelf project. We've gone through what's referred to as a procurement selection process to where design build was very readily and easily decision made that was the preferred delivery method. To achieve that goal of having a shelf project and be ready to begin a contractor procurement in 2014, it was really the only way going. And it's also the best way to recognize innovation opportunities that are out there. And it was also the best way to develop, at the time, a program when we have an undeveloped, unknown scope of work and unknown project budget. So it was very easy to make that decision and document that with Federal Highways as well as our staff branches up north. Advertising the RFP is underway. We will be having those proposals submitted, I believe, Thursday. Some of the key issues that are out there that the team will be looking at, floodplain development, bridge and wall structures, maintenance of traffic. These are kind of the normal things that there's opportunities for innovation with the design build program. And again, that design build method is the best way to meet the ramp program timelines and facilitate a lot of stakeholder communications. We anticipate with what's going on and what's envisioned in the downtown area, as well as with the gateway treatments to the west, as well as completing the improvements of I-25 and filling that seventh pot gap, if you will, that there's going to be a need for a tremendous amount of coordination with this board and your member entities that are particularly affected with I-25 Cimarron.
And a big sign that says Teller and Park County.
Absolutely.
Up yonder.
We talked a little bit earlier. There was a question about the $95 million in Phase 1 and Phase 2. While I have you here, we'll talk a little about the southbound exit ramp. There was $5 million of Metro funds that was programmed into this. Those appraisals are complete. Offers are going out, so this right-of-way acquisition for the southbound exit ramp is underway. The Express Inn, you may have noticed as of March, there's a little bit more activity out there. In fact, there's several trucks that have been going out there daily. The asbestos abatement is underway, and they are pulling out the asbestos out of the building before it goes out for demolition. We are beginning to, I would say, our property management division is putting together an RFP, if you will, to begin demolition on that probably within the next month or so. So the Express Inn is going away.
You guys bought it?
Yes, we did.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
We were just talking. I was wondering why you were doing all that work, but of course you must have already acquired title to it. Thank you. Sorry.
If I might, can I just get with you offline and talk about what you're planning to do in the meantime when it's demoed and a couple of other items on this? So at a
Certainly.
later, not right here. I just wanted to.
Absolutely, Commissioner Clark.
I heard they're going to run water and electricity and put tents in.
And that's kind of where the status is on the right-of-way acquisition efforts that we've been talking about over the past several months. Just real brief, here's the entryway into America the Beautiful Park, the Midland Trail going underneath the interstate here. Colorado Avenue is the northern limit of this project, and the widening goes down through. We have currently a bridge on the southbound exit ramp, a bridge over the northbound exit ramp. Here's the I-25 overpass over Cimarron Expressway, and the project continues on south. Ignore this flyover ramp, if you will. Recall this is a convergence of two environmental assessments back in 2004 to support the Strategic Corridor Program. We developed the I-25 improvements from South Academy all the way up to Monument. The interchange was a tight diamond interchange, and in that vein, if you will, we developed the $95 million cost estimate that we're submitting for the ramp program. That takes the improvement down across Bear Creek, also down to the Tejon interchange area. So that's where the $95 million comes from. The graphic here you see represented is from the US 24 West environmental assessment, which the EA has completed. The decision document is, I think we're going to see a spring time frame, and we're going to close out the books on the US 24 planning effort. It's been years in the making, but we are closing on the end, and we're going to get there. That environmental assessment, those plans that you see reflected here have a tight diamond interchange. So it's a single point urban interchange, also at 8th Street, but also currently what you see at Garden of the Gods and I-25. So that's kind of the latest and greatest, but the $95 million cost estimate is still good, and this is taking us from, again, Colorado Avenue south down to the Nevada-Tejon interchange. One of the things that we're going to need to look at as with the proximity of 8th Street, I guess it's a fancy way of saying it's pretty close to the I-25 interchange. We need to make sure that what we're doing along here and along this approach to I-25, we're not going to have a lot of throwaway. We're going to try to minimize that as best we can and be poised in the middle of 2014 to recognize and best achieve the goals that we're going to establish for the I-25 Cimarron Interchange project. Questions on the Cimarron Interchange project?
Councilmember Williams.
So, essentially, if I heard you correctly, I can ignore the purple loop that's going around there because you've essentially changed the design so it models Garden of the Gods?
No, I should have been more clear. It will follow the Garden of the Gods as far as the interchange type. It will be a single point urban interchange, but this flyover here is for eastbound to northbound travel, and that would be one of the last phases that gets built with US 24.
Okay, so
it's not necessary with these improvements, and we're not planning on that as part of the $95 million.
Okay, so it's on the plan for eventually, but not in this $95 million phase.
That's correct.
Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave, do you, and I know it's probably too soon to ask, but in terms of start of construction, do you have kind of a timeline? Obviously, 2014 will be done with the design, so the project will start in 2014 or
that's to be determined.
That's
but
depending
the
the
commission,
$95 million
the the department's management from the commission down to our RTD and our program engineer are pretty clear that we want to be ready in 2014.
Okay.
But that is not to say that the funds have been identified
Right.
or approved, or I can tell you when we would start.
So if the money becomes available, the design will be completed enough to start in mid-2014, depending on dollars that are available to start the project.
To
Is that
begin a
correct?
design build procurement for the contractor, yes.
Okay.
There would still be
Yeah.
additional design. I mean, I'm probably splitting too many hairs, but there's going to be initial design work, much like they're doing on I-25 North, to start the project. But we're going to be ready in 2014 to spend money.
Okay.
And for this project to qualify for the ramp funding, which it desperately needs in order to get off the ground, it needs to be, the construction needs to be completed by December of 2017. That's part of the criteria of spending the funds down that are in that program. So it would be a pretty fast construction project given the amount of work that's needed here in this area.
Marvelous. Commissioner Steen.
So in the event that construction is not completed by 12/17, what happens to funding, or what's the options if it's not completed? In view of those constraints, Tom.
Well, you know, we want to say that's a hard date. That's the goal. That's the target to complete the ramp efforts.
Would we like a few minutes on Waldo Canyon with where we're going with that? Recall this, the Transportation Commission, we've also in September, post Waldo Canyon fire and post a couple flood events that we had, particularly in July 30th, that became very apparent that we are now in a different environment. Post Waldo Canyon fire along Highway 24 and also in other areas where the fire is draining out into Colorado Springs and surrounding communities. But the commission did allocate $5.1 million from the contingency funds, so those are brought into the STIP, and we are moving forward with that. $175,000 was to kind of pay back our maintenance crews that were responding to the fire, serving as the fire transport access line, if you will, during that week that the fire was burning. Also, their cleanup costs are included in that $175,000 from both the two events when we had some closures on Highway 24. The watershed assessment study is something that there was a briefing on Monday at the Regional Recovery Group. That there's a number of organizations, as you're all well aware, that have been collaborating and exchanging information in this regard. The department is putting $100,000 together to donate to that effort once the study is complete. That leaves a total of $4.2 million for construction with the target advertisement date of this month, March 28th. In general, brief, there's 2 or 3 slide areas, and I've heard of slide areas. I'm thinking of Sand Gulch, Wellington Gulch is probably the most one of the more conspicuous ones, right up above the Living Waters medical marijuana facility. I apologize. It's not a problem. It's just a reference point.
I've got it. I know what we're talking about now.
Sand Gulch is above the elementary school. But those are a couple of the significant pour points. Enhanced conveyance is a fancy term for adding some culverts and expanding channels where we can. Sediment traps is a key part of the improvements up above, if you will, on that segment up between Cascade and Green Mountain Falls. The point of the project is to provide a more reliable US 24. It was something that's not the type of notoriety or attention we want to get for our communities up west. And we want to provide something for our folks where the sediment can be trapped and we have a better opportunity to clean the material out before it comes onto the highway. And I want to go back to the Rainbow Falls embankment. That's probably the #1 priority area. There's a rather high embankment to the east of the Rainbow Falls Bridge, west of Manitou Springs city limits. But it's been an area that we've been monitoring, and really our comfort level went away June 30th, or excuse me, July 31st, the day after the first rain. It's a lot more sensitive area than it has been over the last few years, and this is where we're spending a significant amount of funds to try to shore up and stabilize that embankment there. You will be seeing some activity in the quarter in Manitou Springs on the west side of the town there, Mayor Snyder, as well as further up the pass where our maintenance crews are going to be staging equipment and being poised to respond as the rainy season comes. This is not a solution. This is a preventive program to try to give us a better chance of keeping the highway open and having a more reliable Highway 24 during the spring and summer rains. Yes, sir.
Trustee. Dave, do you have more details on the programming of that $5.1 million in that? We're obviously very concerned and interested in the UPass area. Just wondering more details as to what that's.
I'd be glad to sit down with you and show you a little bit more detail.
Mayor Snyder.
Yeah, I'm just so impressed with how quickly you guys have addressed our critical issues up there, and I want to thank all of CDOT for prioritizing this and obvious benefits to Manitou Springs and all the communities along Highway 24. One specific question. These sediment traps and retention ponds that are a part of the program, are you planning to maintain those throughout the years, or was it more of a situation where you'll build it and then look for a local partner for maintenance? Or
the improvements that we're building, those sediment traps, we're going to be maintaining. And that's part of the equipment that we're staging at the pass, is to be more responsive and give this a place where the debris can capture, be caught before it gets onto the highway, and we will be having equipment staged up there that we're going to be maintaining these things that we're building.
But we would welcome any partnership in the future.
Got all our support.
You opened that can of worms. Mayor Pro Tem McCafferty.
Yeah, is there, what's USDA and the Forest Service doing? I mean, are they contributing any to revegetating that area, and have any estimates of how long it's going to take to get that done, and what kind of impact that's going to have on future control?
Commissioner Clark can correct me, steer me back if I get this wrong, but there's they are the lead agency on the watershed assessment study, and that is an area to look at how much more severe of a rainfall and debris flow we're going to have after the Waldo Canyon fire. That's a modeling effort that's going on. What type of measures can be taken to stabilize the slope, I should say the watershed burn areas, and kind of targeting specifically where we had a hotter burn. There are areas where, with that decomposed granite, that the fire burnt hot enough that instead of the normal ground cover or the water being able to go into the soil, it's formed think of a clay or porcelain slope.
Glass. Hydrophobic layer.
Sheet of glass.
That one wasn't in my vocabulary yet, but I better get it in there. But they're leading that effort, and they are continuing to try to stabilize and revegetate the area and bring in their crews. And I don't know if you want to talk about your efforts with.
Well, and I don't want to take a lot of time, but I do just want to say that we're hopeful. We've been working on this for many, many months as it relates to the burn area assessments that was done right after the fire. We know what is needed in terms of the mitigation efforts, but Colorado itself is short about $20 million from USDA, which funds the Natural Resources Conservation Service, known as NRCS, to actually do the work. The hope is that just last week, thankfully, we hit the hill again with Colorado counties as well as National Association of Counties, and individually, Congressman Gardner was able to get our dollars into the continuing resolution that was passed on last Wednesday, and now it goes on to the Senate. This is EWP nationwide, not just our portion, but we're hopeful that we'll get full funding for Colorado, which would cover both High Park and Waldo Canyon. So we'll get approximately around $9.8 million is what we're short here in this region. And so then we'll be able to at least do that. Now the WARS assessment, the watershed assessment that's up there, that CDOT thankfully came forward with some dollars too that we're all putting into, that's going to be more detailed and more specific. That will show we need more than just what NRCS can provide, but at least we're going to get something moving forward. And then the Forest Service is also looking at their budget to see what they can do separately to start working more in the watershed up above. So that was probably the more information than you wanted, but we're very excited. We're finally making some headway, and we, again, as Mayor Schneider said, we thank you, Dave, for and CDOT and our Transportation Commissioner down there for helping us to get some funding through CDOT to make sure we keep Highway 24 open too.
There's a lot of work going on by a lot of different agencies. Anecdotally, we've had some lessons learned from the Hayman Park fire, the State Highway 67. 10 years is kind of the rough figure that's been bantered about how long this could be, and that matches up pretty well. This is the first summer we have not had to get debris off the highway on State Highway 67, and the Hayman Park fire was 10 years ago.
Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
And we've lost the slide, but we greatly appreciate the 5.1 million and all the efforts that you put in, but the last bullet is, I think, the most important bullet, is really looking and being ready for when this happens again, because it's not an if, it's a when. So we appreciate you bringing your efforts down here and really helping us out to mitigate this as fast as possible.
And the plan is to have the contractor on board shortly after advertisement, contracts fully executed, and then have a very short time period, have them on a tight time schedule to get the work done, or the lion's share of the work done, before the summer rains hit.
Mayor Turley?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to this. We're not in a position that we're actually affected by mudslides and such things directly, but obviously what happens on US 24 really impacts, everything that we do in Woodland Park and in Teller County, because that is our primary access in and out. So, I want to weigh in that we greatly appreciate all of these efforts, and because it really does affect our lives greatly in Woodland Park.
Thank you. Anything else, Dave?
As big of a problem it is for Park County, to get to Colorado Springs as it is. If Highway 24 wasn't there, it'd be really a problem. But it's nothing for us compared to Woodland Park. I mean, you got all those people trying to get to work every morning, and I just drove in with them all. And this would be to think about what a economic impact it would be to this area to have that shut down for any amount of time.
Right. You're on it. Thank you.
Wayne?
I'm Wayne Pittman. I'm the project engineer on the I-25 widening. The construction start date technically was March 1st, but they aren't going to get out there and start setting concrete barrier until March 25th. The capacity improvement means that all 6 lanes will be installed and ready to drive on by December 31st. They will come back in 2014 and put the last lift of asphalt on, and they expect to be done by July 4th of 2014 with everything. We'll be widening I-25 from Woodman to Monument. There'll be auxiliary lanes between changes up to Interquest and Briargate, or Woodman and Academy to Briargate, and Briargate to Interquest. Ackerman Overlook will be moved and relocated. It'll be expanded, and there'll also be expanded the chain-up station at Baptist Road. There's a BABO amendment with FHWA. Fish and Wildlife has accepted it, and FHWA just basically has to sign off. And we can start working at Black Squirrel Creek along with I-25 and Woodman. They're going to start work on the outside, so traffic will be shifted to the inside lanes. There'll still be 2 lanes each direction. Any impacts will be at night between 8:30 p.m. and 5:30 a.m. We'll have a courtesy patrol ready to assist stranded motorists in the peak hours, Monday through Friday, and any special events with the Academy or the local areas. We're going to meet with Air Force Academy come Monday and really discuss the Northgate interchange and kind of coordinate all of those pieces to get it together. They're going to work 2 shifts. Most likely it'll be kind of as the construction ramps up, they're going to be working days and nights. We're going to have our CDOT website going, and the contractor has a website as well for updates. That's it.
Fun to have one in progress.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the one thing to point out here is that the winning contractor had a proposal that essentially completed this project nearly a full year ahead of the original schedule, which was amazing, very, very impressive. And it wasn't a whole lot more money than the second place company. So there's a lot of value added there for to get that, all this major work done sooner.
Absolutely. Before we get back to our staff, we've been joined by Commissioner Les Gruen. Les, do you have comments you want to make at this time about ramp and the proposal, or do you want to weigh in as the discussion goes on?
First thing I'd like to do is make sure that Tom Rona gets the accolades that he deserves for making this thing happen. Maybe one of the precedents to ramp itself was Tom, and I don't know if you want to give anyone else credit, but from what I've heard, Tom, I think it was primarily you coming up with the notion that, hey, we can accelerate the construction of North I-25 and get this done a lot earlier than we might otherwise get it done. And that was huge, not only statewide, but it was huge for us within the region. So I think everyone around this table really needs to know that Tom deserves a lot of credit for this thing. And it's huge. It's going to have a huge impact to all of us personally and all of your constituents. So, Tom, a personal thank you for getting that done. I apologize for being late, Mr. Chair, and I don't know if the discussion that you and I and Rob have had previous to this meeting has already taken place, and
No, it really hasn't. We jumped right into the presentation.
Then there's no need for me to chime in right now.
Clerk and Recorder Williams.
I was just going to say, because I raised my hand too, because I wanted to say, I've been on this board for a very long time, actually more than a decade now. And this is one of the best presentations we've had from CDOT ever, because we have projects identified that are actually going to get done in the southwest, the southeast, the west side, the northwest, the northeast, and we don't often get presentations of that magnitude. So kudos to CDOT, to Tom, and to your staff for working to actually get things done. And I think this is an illustration of the benefit of the RAMP program and why it makes sense to proceed, and why I think it's one of the better things that CDOT has done. Because we've occasionally had a project we were doing that we got funding for, and we were really excited about a project. And the ability to be excited about 5 different projects, I think if I got the count right, is something that we haven't had in a long time. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Maybe it is worthwhile to say a couple words right now. Since Clerk and Recorder Williams brought up these 5 projects, I walked in after I think some of these projects were being discussed. But as we move forward with ramp funding, I think Tom and his staff have identified some ways to fund these projects outside of ramp. And I don't know if that piece has been discussed yet.
Not really. I'm just going to kind of move into that. So
Well, let me just bring that up. And Tom, feel free to interrupt me, but I think, again, Tom and his staff have identified ways to fund these projects outside of ramp. Now, what does that mean? Same way that I-25 is being funded by accelerating money that's already in the STEP, the expenditure money that's already in the STEP can be done to fund some of these other critical projects that are high priorities for all of you. What's the advantage of doing that? Well, the advantage of funding these projects outside of ramp is that the best we can figure, there's not a competitive application process for this. So things can just be built within our normal budgetary process, but in a little quicker fashion.
I'll add with the Transportation Commission approval. Still to come.
I'm hopeful that that part can be taken care of pretty easily. What that leaves us with is the big elephant in the room. I think I-25 and Cimarron, and let's round the number to $100 million. And there's a big match that the ramp criteria calls for of $20 million, either in cash or in kind. And I think, my personal opinion, and this is what the chairman and some of the CDOT senior people and Rob and I have been talking about it, it seems like it might be most advantageous for us is to try to fund these other things outside of ramp and to say that I-25 and Cimarron is so important to this region that the PPACG board is entirely behind this one project, and we're going to do whatever we can to figure out how to get this thing done. And that this is our priority, and this is what we want to get as a region out of ramp. That's my recommendation is our best approach to get this thing done. It's not a slam dunk, but I'm hopeful that based on conversations that the executive director and I have had, that he and I can figure out a mechanism and then pull Tom in on this process and then pull my colleagues on the commission in and get this thing figured out. So those are my thoughts. And we'll do it at the beginning of the conversation rather than the end.
We hadn't brought up the match yet. The ramp has several categories apparently, and the one we are likely talking about here for Cimarron, and I'm looking at Tom because I'm expecting him to either clarify or say, no, you're completely wrong here. But the one we're looking at is probably the public
That's correct.
category.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, a key piece of that, you're right, is the criteria is that there's a targeted minimum 20% match. So if the locals are able to come up with that in the form of right-of-way, non-federal money, cash, if you will, or some in-kind services such as design effort performed by the local, those are some means to raise that match. But and obviously, with an application process such as this, the more money you could come to the table with would obviously make an application stronger. I mean that goes without saying. One great thing we have going for us here is that it's truly a critical project. It's a link on the interstate corridor that's basically incomplete at this time. Really is in need of reconstruction. It's not only that, but it's an interstate NHS highway interchange itself. It's a very important piece of the statewide transportation system. We've got a lot of good things going for this project as far as meeting the real critical need that is expected of these candidate projects.
I'm not convinced that this has to be entirely a public-public partnership. Of the $300 million a year, we're planning to start off with $175 million coming out of asset management and $125 for partnerships. I personally believe that a component of this can come out of the asset management fund, and maybe that's getting too deep into the weeds, but I'm with Tom. I think this is an attractive project, and if we play our cards right, we're going to get it funded.
And also, we have the RTA here, which has some projects, either companion or on the state, including the city project at Cimarron crossing the creek, which is scheduled for somewhere down the road that creative minds may be able to figure out how to make that count as part of the match, and who knows what else. Clerk and Recorder Williams.
Well, in the who knows what else category. Highway 24 improvements also include the business route of Highway 24. So I'm wondering if there's a way to put that all within the same project, because that one we have identified Pikes Peak RTA funds, and Tom's shaking his head.
I'm thinking that's a real stretch. That
may be too far of a
yeah,
stretch, but,
yeah.
but I do think we have ways of looking at it. I think Commissioner Gruen's points are well taken there, that there are ways that we can make this work. And I think one of the things we've seen from CDOT the last year and a half, a little bit more, is a willingness to try to find ways to make things work that aren't always conventional. And I think that's good and positive, because ultimately for the citizens in this area, they want roads completed. They don't really care which bucket of funds those roads came from, and if you asked them in a survey, they would be totally clueless. But they're glad when the projects are done. And I think we've seen that very much so working on it. And so, again, I appreciate that work. And as we look competitively and creatively at trying to find ways to do that.
Dr. Knoll?
Well, I just couldn't sit here any longer without saying something. My students wouldn't believe it. I remember, along with a few of the rest of you, the feeling almost of despair when the $800 million built the road through Denver, and the then governor promised us our turn would come if we'd all get behind that. And Commissioner Clark has almost killed herself trying to get these priorities done for years. This is, though, in my observation period, the first time I've seen such a partnership attempted. It's just amazing. Everything from our representatives on the Transportation Committee to CDOT people in this room. It's almost a miracle, because back then everybody was trying to get the same small amount of money, and no one seemed to be putting the partnership together that would really bring this about. And a lot of credit goes to the group sitting around these tables who were here in that time. Now, not any of you are as old as I am, but it was it's remarkable. And it's so refreshing to see a partnership developing, trying to accomplish really important things. And I thank you as my representatives and my state government for working. It's been a long time coming, but it's happening. And for those of you who are newer to the table, it may not be so amazing to you, but I know some of you sitting around here still you're pinching yourself to see, is this really going to happen? And so it's a great partnership. And the state and this community are in it together, so I'm just pleased to see it.
Tom, I don't want to get us too far off track here, but I know you have a meeting scheduled, and this is probably for as much for the benefit of the local government representatives in the audience. You have a meeting scheduled on the 19th. Can you explain what that meeting is for?
Well, it's a workshop representatives of the local governments to meet with us at CDOT, and we will provide an overview of the ramp program, as well as getting into the application or pre-application criteria. We'll likely engage in some discussion about projects, but not get down into the weeds. But what we really want to let you know is that the CDOT staff will be working with the local government representatives to formulate the strongest applications possible to be successful competing for the ramp projects.
And that kind of tells me you're expecting other applications to come in from the municipalities. Well,
it's out of my control at this point. I mean,
right.
This group can have that discussion and make, if you wanted to focus in on a few big projects or look at others in the various.
Right. That was kind of the rest of the question then. If those projects are submitted, does that come back through this board then? Because I'm not familiar with all the rules in ramp. Will that come back to this board to be passed on to you, what we feel is most important, or how will that work?
That's not necessarily a step in the process, but it'd probably be a good thing to do, especially since it's a lot of the projects are, I'm guessing, that are already in the STIP,
right? But
may not be fully funded. Some may be completely outside of it at this point. So this body will have to be involved with, with support and approval for those. The part of this application process is that the projects that go forward have letters of support behind them, and to have the Pikes Peak MPO behind you as well, I think that would lend strong credibility.
What I'm wondering about is our commissioner said, we really need to kind of focus here on what's most important, and at the same time, each municipality may put forward project or projects that they feel are very important to them. I didn't know if those went directly to you, and then everything goes to wherever in Denver, and so suddenly Denver's not sure what's most important, and they're left picking amongst a dozen projects.
Well, that's true. The projects will be submitted directly to the region, to Region CDOT,
okay,
and then forwarded on to Denver. There'll be some, like I said, there'll be a review at the region level. Personally, I'll be involved with reviewing the applicants, the projects that are in consideration, and providing comments. I think bottom line, I think it would have a whole lot of provide a whole lot of weight if this group was able to.
Okay. I would
to get together and maybe come up with some of your own, a little bit of a game plan there, and even to the point where this group could even prioritize those projects. So now some would fit into different categories. For example, pardon?
TPR projects or MPO projects only? In other words,
I see what you're saying, and we will also meet with all the TPRs as well, Mark.
I'm wondering if TPRs are ever going to get another project because of the 20% match component, and
yeah.
What it tells me is, and it's nothing against the MPOs, and I'm really happy that we got brought into the District 2, and that all my representatives are here now when I come to these meetings, but we're still castaways or whatever we are up there. Where's our money going to come from? Because we don't have any money in the TPRs. We don't have the 20%. We don't have any matching money.
Well, there's other elements of the ramp program that you could actually qualify for, but that would for example, it could be the devolution piece, or if there was a road that made sense for the local to take over that's currently a state highway. There's also the asset management piece where.
Wait. I just said we don't have any money.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. But see, that devolution piece, we would provide money to you to take over a piece of road that you could handle that was on our system.
And then we had our 20%.
No.
Yes.
But
in our conversation with the Supreme Executive Director Hunt, he said, "Don't worry, Mark, we're going to cover you."
Well, see, that funding would have to be likely be out of a different source other than this ramp effort. There'll still be the statewide long-range plan and the STIP that's developed and the prioritization of projects. That's going on outside of this. That's sort of business as usual, if you will, and then you've got the ramp program that we're speaking of today as a different effort.
Here's my concern, and it's on a statewide level. My tourism director tells me that 45 of the 64 counties, or 50 of the 64 counties, are tourism destinations for people that come to Colorado, and that's the reason that they come to Colorado. It's not to come to Colorado Springs or Denver or Pueblo. It's to come to the mountains and to these attractions that are throughout the state. The reason a lot of the tourists come and land here is because this is a great place to take off from and go and see this beautiful state. They have to be able to get out of the MPO. There has to be an escape route for them, which is good. But once they get onto these highways, there has to be some maintenance and projects done in the other 60 counties or 50 counties than the three.
Sure, and we're not going to abandon the existing system. Actually, where I was going with that, Commissioner, is that there's a very large element of the ramp program that's set aside just for things such as surface treatment, bridge replacement, rockfall, and various other areas, culverts, of actually maintaining the existing system, and that's a large portion. It's almost half, or a bit more than half of the $300 million a year will be basically set aside for those types of activities, which will likely handle some needs on the roadways that you're speaking of that are outside of the metro areas, that get people from point A to B, get them from the cities to the tourist destinations and so forth, our mountains.
Tom, can I help you a little bit?
Sure, help me out, Les.
I think you're exactly right. And I can tell you, Commissioner Dwalaby, from the Commission standpoint, we're well aware of the balance that needs to be met on the issues that you bring up. I think practically speaking, the big projects in the high population areas are going to get a lot of these higher visibility projects. But as Tom pointed out, at least initially, in the first 5 years, over half, $175 million of the $300 million are going to be going to asset management rather than partnership projects, which do not require matches.
Okay.
So I think I would say to you, don't be discouraged if Park County has a project that you want to move forward. Move it forward, and let's see what happens.
And that's I feel that CDOT has done an incredible job within Park County and within this region. And when I look at, we do rely on the city. We have to come for stuff every once in a while. So
the rural areas, at the end of the day, in a time of scarcity, are going to get shortchanged. Now, having said that, the commission, the people that are the 11 people that are allocating the money, are very, very, very aware of these issues and are doing everything we can to try to balance things out so that we recognize the importance that the rural areas play in the state and are trying to manage our assets in the most rational way that we can. So again, if there's good projects in Park County, let's move them forward and see if we can get them funded.
We don't expect, the same kind of money being spent up there as it's, this is where the population is. We know you have to move people here. And I don't get complaints really much from people about CDOT. It's more my roads that they complain to me about. As a matter of fact, they tell me they're going to bring the state in to clear my road. And I'm like, well, if you can get them to come. But I want to say that to all the people that work in transportation in this region, and what a great job you all do, and what a great job of planning. Looking at that moving model, wow, that's the only way to show something like that. And I'm guessing you've got huge computers that come up with a plan like that, but it's incredible. And when we're talking about the amount of money we're talking about, and how difficult it is to plan for the future, I'm very, very impressed with all of CDOT and their.
We need to get this back on track here. We've got many more items after this one, and we haven't finished this one yet. So, Mayor, a quick comment.
I'm sorry, I'm still digesting the chair's comments prior to this discussion. Are you contemplating that member entities of this council would independently submit projects to RAMP?
I had to make that assumption when I saw the meeting being scheduled.
Okay.
And I would really hope that those projects would come back through us to be prioritized, should they decide to do so.
Well, that would be so big a step backwards after we worked so hard to get this regional priority. I can't imagine any entity would do an end run after we've worked so hard to get this project. Maybe we can ask, I guess, Colorado Springs to come up and tell us if they're planning on doing it.
Well, before we do that, Craig, let's get back on track here and get this wrapped up.
As you all mentioned, CDOT will be conducting, PPACG will be hosting. The good news is PPACG is hosting the March 19th meeting, so we will be aware of everything that
we think we already are.
Yes. What we'd be looking from you is guidance. Are there specific projects we should try to focus on? We made the assumption that the prioritized project list would be the way to go on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rob?
To maybe call it a halftime speech. I think the bottom line question for the board is going to be from staff is, what projects do you want us to make sure we fill out for the RAMP process? That's the bottom line. So that said, I need to step back with the keyword acceleration. As CDOT and Commissioner Gruen has already brought up, there's two accelerations. Tom talked about accelerating other projects forward with other money that is already in the budget. So I'll remind the board, first, you have your wish list. If this all works out, you may be asked to come up with a new wish list, which is the great news. The second part of it, on the table, I gave you excerpts from what we call our Transportation Improvement Program. It's the TIP. The state calls it a STIP, so that's just to clarify that acronym. 4 pages that look very small print. I just want to take a very quick walk through the funding that this board approved in your TIP, approved by CDOT, and in January approved by the governor of the state to say, this is the money you have, this is the projects you have. So this board did a remarkable thing from a hindsight is 2020. Now that RAMP's coming forward, but also the other acceleration that Tom was talking about and Les was talking about through the asset management. What we have on the first page, which is on the bottom, says page 26, something called regional priorities. So when the board approved this TIP, you also approved pools of funding. So this first page, the pool of funding of regional priority projects, which is possibly for CDOT one source of this acceleration outside of RAMP. You can see in the pool on the top line, the second line down, there's about $21.5 million of money available for projects to be identified under CDOT's category, and they select regional priority program projects. They come out of our plan, they come out of the TIP and the STIP. So that's $21.5 million for CDOT to consider as maybe a revenue source to accelerate. The other one is on the next page, which is page 28.
Could I just briefly say something here, Rob, and just interject that this happens to be the one area of our budget that we haven't been able to fund adequately over recent years, and in the foreseeable future. What has been, when you say 21 million, that's been reduced to less than $2 million for the entire region. I mean, it's actually this fiscal year, that dollar amount for RPP, regional priorities, has only forecast to be $7 million statewide. So that's much less than $2 million for an entire region. So some of this stuff will need to be revisited, and we have to look at this from a different perspective as well.
Just to add on to that for perspective, the Commission is moving away from our regional priority project funding.
And I think some of these other categories, that may be the case, but not because the governor signed this 2 months ago. CDOT will have to come through, and Wayne does this at STAC. The revenue allocations, again, it's not for 1 year. In 1 year, this may be zero, but this is out through 2018. Remember, the RAMP program go out 5 years to 2017. So in your current TIP, and you all know we amend our TIP monthly, except this month we didn't. But normally we amend it. The next page, if I can get through the four, page 28 is another category that CDOT staff already talked about today, something called strategic projects. I think throughout the presentation, I-25 Powers Boulevard are strategic projects. That has $88.8 million through 2018. That is unspoken for strategic projects to be identified by CDOT, approved by this board. Again, CDOT consideration over that time, maybe accelerating that to get things done pre-ramp. Third page is what Les talked about, the FASTER dollars. FASTER program dollars for safety has $44 million through 2018 and has bridge $35 million. So that one's about $79 million that CDOT will allocate and the Commission will allocate because people submit bridge projects, safety projects. So if we have a bridge project anywhere in our priorities, we'd ask CDOT to consider that to accelerate that, whether it's ramp or pre-ramp. I don't think the board cares. And the last one is something that's been buried in our TIP for a while. We call it congestion relief. It's on page 19, the fourth page. $3.2 million for projects directed by this board with CDOT to say, is there a project we can combine and look at all this dollars through 2018 to advance? And so we have a list to advance, as this board has done before, most recently with the Fillmore interchange. If there's a funding source out there, and the Fillmore was to the federal program, Tiger 4, this board said, hey, take that bullet on our resolution from a year ago, move it up, put it in through CDOT, put it into the feds. We didn't get that money. So I think the board's faced with, back to the bottom line question, for the RAMP program, what project or projects do we think we want to fill out the forms and go through all this?
Which that really is
that's the bottom
That's
line.
the only thing we really care about right now. So having on this item. So Craig, what you've got up there is great, but it's really kind of got us down in the weeds. So get us back up to 30,000 feet. And
that would be the list of projects that you all identified previously. PPACG staff, we'll be taking this through the TAC both this month and next month. I don't see a problem at all with, once we know after the March 19th meeting, our TAC meeting is the 21st, so we'll know then what projects have been identified. We can go through, start a process to prioritize the projects. To me, less applications is better just because it's less. But
I'm going to throw out my suggestion here. I'm probably going to want to see, and this is just my suggestion, I'm going to want to see a list of those things that are likely to be funded outside of the formal ramp process, realizing that both of these programs have the word accelerate or accelerating in them. That'll be useful information for me. And then Cimarron interchange is going to be my number one. I just can't imagine that I would be looking at something else as number one. But I think any other projects that are put forward, it's important to us that we look at those and prioritize or say, no, these really shouldn't even be forwarded. I don't know that this board has that ability, but that's kind of my thinking. Councilmember Williams.
And my question is sorry, Tom, to put you on the spot, going to be directed mostly towards you. I know this is brand new, but what are you looking for? Are you looking for 5 projects of which you pick the best one that fits within the mix, or are you really looking for us to come forward and say, this is our number one, and we want this at all cost? What do you think would be to our advantage? Because I think we all know what our number one is. Our number one is the most difficult one on the list. We'll give or take the $204 million for Powers, but I don't even think that's going to make it to the top. So I'm trying to look for some feedback from you so that we don't go through an exercise and we get to the end and you say, well, that was nice, but I would have rather had this.
You know, I'm not part of the selection committee. They wouldn't let me get my fingers in that. But I tend to agree that from what I'm hearing is, that to get behind one project, I think that would be sending a strong message to the selection group. I believe that it's a strong. The I-25 Cimarron project is a very strong candidate, and I think there's always that. You always have that, apprehension of whether or not you throw something else in case you don't get what you're, the one big project that you're after. But that's an easy one to all get behind and support. I believe. Commissioner Gruen, do you want to add to that?
A couple of things. One, this is brand new, so there's no answer. I'm reminded of the session we had maybe last year where many of us around the table attended with Secretary of Transportation LaHood, and we were talking about Tiger grants and why Colorado was consistently unsuccessful in getting Tiger grants. And Clerk and Recorder Williams, you remember what he said?
Too many different projects.
Because you don't know what you want.
He said, get behind something. He said, if all of you get behind one deal, as a state, you're a lot more likely to be successful. So that was advice that he gave to us. We ended up getting one Tiger grant. It wasn't the one that we wanted, but or it wasn't the one we wanted down here, but it was the one that we said was most important to the state. And I think there's real value in that. Now, we have a lot of projects that are important to us, and I say let's put one project forward predicated on the notion that we can accelerate the funding on these other 4 or 5 projects that are important to us. And I'm confident that that's the approach that's going to be most successful. Let's try to accelerate funding on these other projects and say, subject to that, we're all behind this one application. I concur greatly with Mayor Snyder that if we start sending a bunch of ad hoc applications through this region, we compromise ourselves. So I think the degree to which we can coordinate through PPACG or wherever we do so is going to be to our best interest.
Craig?
Well, one thing, you as the MPO board have the ability to tip and not tip projects as you desire. So you could make a statement that we will only tip the projects we prioritize to shut off any extra project applications.
Commissioner Clark?
Well, if we're talking about, we've got so many different sort of discussions going on here, but I think if we're going to focus, we had already agreed that Cimarron and I-25 was going to be what was our number one project, and I think we need to stick with that. We're too close. We're in the design build stage. I think we can really see it that it's within our reach, and if we start overcomplicating with too many other things, then we're likely to not get what we need for Cimarron and I-25. So not that that's a big surprise to anyone that I'm saying let's get behind I-25 and Cimarron, but I think that we need to be consistent in our message and give clear direction to CDOT. Now, where the others all I mean, we've got them sort of prioritized, and we want the other stuff too, don't get me wrong, but I think that let's get behind this one project, see that through, and then we'll work down the list as we can.
Trustee Stevens?
Following along with the earlier comments, I'm wondering if it might not be premature to take action as early as today to amend these priorities based upon our, it seems like the Senate of the board basically removing the projects that we feel are confident that are moving forward and keeping with the same priorities, unless we have any reason to think that we'll come up with some higher priorities. My reason for making that question is I think it not only shows strong commitment, but early commitment on behalf of this region to say, yeah, this is still it, and we cannot foresee anything else coming up. We still obviously have the prerogative later if something were to emerge that is just brilliant and solves all the world's problems, but I don't foresee that happening. I see that this list and this high priority project is important, and I think now would be a great time to reaffirm that and move forward and try to close down any opportunities for end runs.
Clerk and Recorder Williams?
A couple comments, and apologize if I jump around. First, I wouldn't remove anything off there that's not funded yet. Just because Tom had it in the PowerPoint, the Transportation Commission hasn't approved it yet, so I absolutely wouldn't remove it from that list.
I thought Tom brought his checkbook.
No.
So I made that comment. The second comment I'd make is that we have Highway 24 Cimarron as the top two priorities up there. So this is a solid list. The third issue I would make on that is something Rob referred to, a wish list. Let me just clarify for anyone in the audience who's watching. This is not just something that we thought might be nice to have. This is something that was identified during the Romer administration as a strategic priority for the state. During the Owens administration, it was listed as the REF-D project for this community. Voters turned down REF-D, but did pass REF-C that was supposed to fund it, but the legislature then diverted the funds. But that's another story. So these are not just wish lists. I mean, this has been a long priority for the last 4 gubernatorial administrations, just to give you an idea of how long this has been worked on. So it should be the top priority. I agree that we ought not to put a whole lot of other stuff in there. I do have one question, what I'll get to in a second. And then the last point I'd make is, with that said, and I'm not saying they're doing this, okay, so but if the developer of the Cinemark area on Powers came up and said, I will spend $25 million to build 2 intersections on Powers if CDOT gives me $1 million, I'd at least want to listen to it. So I'm not at the point where I'm saying I would absolutely never put anything in the STIP or TIP, but I do think we have a very skeptical view of anything else going in. But the question I had is, with the acceleration, there I see 4 board members of the Baptist Road RTA here. Of course, our region's past top priority, no longer on the list because it was funded, was the Baptist Road, with CDOT agreeing to pay back. And so with the ramp acceleration, Commissioner Gruen, if you might mention what the thoughts are with respect to CDOT's payback of the rest of the BRDA amount.
It's not something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. If that's an application that this board wants to make, I think they certainly could. I don't know, Tom, if you have any particular thoughts. The only way that I have even considered that notion is if there was a way to pay that back and use it as part of a match for I-25 in Cimarron.
Having put the ballot issue on, no, there's not. Okay. Any excess funds in Baptist RTA have to go to the Baptist Road corridor.
Okay, well, I didn't know if there was, to me, that was, again, the only context in which I had thought of that. If there was a way to pay that back and somehow borrow that back or twist it around and then leverage that money to use as a match was the only way I'd even contemplated that.
To wrap this up,
I don't think I'm going to
Councilmember
have
Williams.
that great of a comment, but I think we've all decided that Cimarron I-25 is our #1 rallying point. If in the awful worst-case scenario that doesn't make the cut, should we have a very distant second that we want? And I see it either as the $60 million for 24 and 8th Street or the Powers Boulevard Stewart interchange at $40 million. But again, I know, Tom, you have no idea how this process works per se, and this is more for you and for the board. Do we want a distant second, or do we want to rally around one, and if we don't get it, we get nothing out of this $1.5 billion?
You really put me on the spot, don't you? I think the only comment that that I feel I can address based upon what you just said, Councilwoman, is that the piece that you referred to as the 8th Street, it doesn't stand alone. The 8th Street 24. You can build you need to build the I-25 Cimarron first.
Okay, so then we have
So that's a phase 2. That's
right, exactly.
At this point, it's a nice to do. It's going to be a need to do in the not so distant future. The real need to do right now is the main interchange, is the Cimarron I-25 piece. So you don't want that as your second, I wouldn't think.
So
You'd be going after too much that way, because then you're looking at the entire project, and that's harder to match. But as far as another second, I really don't know what to tell you.
Kathleen looks like she's dying there.
I'll get to Kathleen when we're ready for Kathleen.
Okay. So I think you've just identified our very distant second, if we have a very distant second. So that,
and I'm not sure about that based on what may happen at the meeting on the 19th. So that would be
right. But I mean, for
my
this
commentary.
body, if none of us are individually
We-
bringing up projects,
Right.
these are the ones that we have in front of us.
We have another meeting before this goes forward. It will look like Fast and Furious around here for the next 30 days, but we have another meeting of this board before things are put forward. So I would not be surprised to see several things put forward for us to prioritize or
But it's an action
not.
item for today. We have,
Right. Kathleen?
Thank you, Chairman Heisey. Kathleen Krager, City Traffic Engineer for Colorado Springs. I just wanted to point out, as you're looking at priorities, whenever we're looking at any form of grant application, we always have to ask ourselves, what are all of the little details that they're looking at, and what are we most likely to get? And while I agree with you that I-25 and Cimarron, if we could not get funding from RAMP for I-25 and Cimarron, I think it would be just a huge mistake on the part of CDOT. But I think there might be some other little things to add in there that could help. We do not have a 20% local match for I-25 and Cimarron.
Identified.
No, let me clarify it. We don't have a local match for I-25 and Cimarron, and the reason why I say that is that the RAMP application process is saying that we can't use any form of federal dollars, which includes all of the money that comes to PPACG. So it's not a matter of you saying, well, we could use, some of our STIP money and that type of thing. It won't be counted on RAMP. It has to be local money. PPRTA has not assigned any money in either existing or the extension to Cimarron. And I know from Colorado Springs standpoint, I do not have general fund dollars to put to Cimarron. And we probably would be the largest group that would have that ability. So what I might suggest to you is, instead of looking for local funding for Cimarron, we've been looking for local funding for a lot of other projects to give CDOT the ability to put that big chunk of money together for Cimarron. And one approach might be to bundle projects and say, look, with this bundle of projects, we're meeting that 20% local match. And let me give you an example of that. If you bundled Cimarron, the Fillmore interchange, the Colorado Avenue project, and the Old Ranch bridges as 4 projects, there's a 20% local match right there when you put all 4 projects together, because Old Ranch is a 100% local. Colorado Avenue, I believe, is about 75% local. Fillmore DDI, when you include the fact that we are doing Chestnut, which had to be done in order to do the DDI, is a 39% local match. So we are putting a lot of local dollars in some places, and maybe it might be more strategic. There are other categories that I think we stand a good chance at. For example, one of the categories is devolution. Most jurisdictions don't like to look at devolution. We are willing to look at devolution, and Colorado Avenue is one of the projects that is a devolution project. Another of your projects up there, the Powers widening, is also a devolution project. Might not think about that, but there's a frontage road on Powers between Platt and Airport. It's called Troy Hill Road. It belongs to CDOT. The city's planning on taking that road over in the very near future, and we're doing it at zero cost to CDOT. So we have some little tricks that we might be able to use to actually help Cimarron along rather than leave Cimarron standing on its own.
In my view, that doesn't change that Cimarron, we're doing everything we can to help Cimarron.
That's right.
And brings us back to a comment about a half hour ago about creative minds getting together, which in my view brings us to the proposed motion to recommend that PPACG staff, in coordination with local entities and CDOT, continue ramp applications for identified projects.
And I would say, as Colorado Springs, we would be thoroughly supportive of any of the applications going through the PPACG board before they're turned into CDOT.
I would move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate your creative juices flowing there. We will take a 10-minute break, and I will do the best to bang the gavel in 10 minutes here.
Good luck with that. That's creative.
Ramp identifications?
In deference to some folks in the audience that have learned considerable about ramp, we are going to go to action item C. 6C is the Arkansas River Basin hearing. Rich Muzzy.
Thank you, everyone. That was a quick reminder how important it is to go before transportation on the board agenda. The state of Colorado sets water quality standards for the streams and the rivers and the creeks. To go ahead.
And Rich, the slide up there is not yours.
No.
Okay, so
not.
Don't be looking for that in your packet for 6C.
Yes. We are on item 6C right now, the Arkansas River Basin hearing. So standards are set for all these rivers, streams, and creeks within the state of Colorado to comply with what's referred to as beneficial uses. The Colorado Water Quality Control Commission sets those standards. It's a commission much like the Transportation Commission, except it has 9 board members that are appointed by the governor, and each member serves a 3-year term. Beneficial uses are divided up into aquatic life uses. There's 2 types of aquatic life uses. There's warm water and cold water, and within each of those categories, there's 2 tiers. Tier 1 is for kind of a much larger variety of species, and tier 2 is kind of a more smaller subset. And there's also what's referred to as recreation classifications, and they're divided into pretty much how much contact that the public has with the water. That is, if it's a primary contact where the public kind of plays in the streams and creeks and has a lot of contact. And it's also divided into water supply, if the streams, creeks used for water supply, agriculture, and wetlands. Thanks, Rob. And these graphs, no. And The Arkansas River Basin hearing occurs once every 6 years. And that's kind of the hearing where it sets those specific standards for the Arkansas River Basin. The Fountain Creek watershed is one of the watersheds kind of in the Arkansas River Basin. So for each of the streams and the creeks, there are those specific standards that are set, which our area must comply with those standards. And those standards are assessed based upon those classified uses that I just mentioned. And there's kind of a suite of standards that goes along with each of those classified uses. And in order to kind of really dig in and to look at kind of site-specific standards, a use attainability analysis is required, and that's what Ginny was talking about a little bit. And that's where you kind of go and do a lot of sampling of the streams and creeks to find out what fish species are there, kind of what the stream flow conditions are like, what the habitat is, the substrate, to go ahead and determine what standards might be appropriate for those individual streams and creeks. And the Colorado Water Quality Control Commission rotates those standards in kind of 5 river basins within the state. So in June, that's kind of when the Arkansas River Basin hearing will be. And in the memo that was passed out, it talked a little bit about that process, how you have an issue scoping hearing where you first kind of determine what the issues and the concerns are, and then you could collect data, and then you determine kind of what the appropriate standards would be. Now, there's 2 proposals relevant to the Fountain Creek watershed that the Water Quality Management Committee discussed at the meeting this month, and those are the Cherokee Metropolitan Districts and the Tri-Lakes Wastewater Treatment Facility. Both the Water Quality Management Committee and PPACG staff recommended moving forward with both of those proposals. There's actually people here, Connie and Tyler are here representing Cherokee Metropolitan District, and Roger Sams here is representing Tri-Lakes. If you have any questions about any of those proposals, please go ahead and ask them, and if I can't answer them, they will. And also within the standards, there's other issues that we're diving into, such as standards regarding phosphorus and chlorophyll, which were part of the nutrient regulations that were passed last year. And there's also standards for temperature that were passed as part of the basic standards. There's also a basic standards hearing. The basic standards hearing occurs once every 6 years. And that's a hearing where it kind of sets the framework, if you will, for the entire state. That is, how will we go ahead and set the classification framework for setting standards, and go ahead and implement those standards, and go ahead and allow for special cases where there's temporary modifications that are needed because a entity can't meet the standards for 2 to 3 years. And that kind of sets the general framework. And then from there, you go into the basin-specific hearings. So with that, I know kind of everyone's a little bit short in time. There's still a lot more agenda items, and I'd be happy to come back next month and kind of go through some of the more general issues that the Water Quality Control Division are proposing. But with that, I'm asking the board to go ahead and recommend a approval of those 2 items, the proposal by Cherokee Metropolitan District and Tri-Lakes.
Do we have a motion?
I move that the Water Quality Control Commission adopt the recommendations.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rich. Item 6B, 2040 Transportation Planning Revenue Scenarios.
Good morning, at least for the next 40 minutes. Again, when we adopt a long-range transportation plan, the plan has to be fiscally constrained. In order to be fiscally constrained, we have to know how much money we have. PPACG has been cooperating with CDOT Clerk and Recorder Williams, myself, and Rob have been going, attending meetings with CDOT to cooperatively develop the statewide funding levels. What you see here are 5 different funding levels based on several different assumptions. The top funding level shown is if there was a 10-cent increase in the state gas tax and how that affects our funding. The bottom line is what would happen if only state and federal gas taxes were used for transportation. There were no general fund transfers. And the middle 3 lines you see as one line are what happens if the economy grows at 1.5%, grows at 2%, or grows at 2.5%. And you can see the difference.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't. The economy doesn't make a difference. It's a quarter the thickness of the line between 1.5% and 2.5% in funding control totals. So this is what the committee work developed. CDOT staff looked at that and said, well, let's actually try to come up with some scenarios that do make a difference. And so what you see again on the bottom are the no transfers of general funds at the federal or state level. The top one is, again, a 10-cent increase in state gas tax. And now we have 2 lines. One is that the second line down with the diamonds is if the state grows its general fund transfers at the same rate as inflation. And the squares which is forecast to be 3%. The squares are what would happen if the transfers of general funds at the state do not match the inflation and continue at the same basic rate. Some interesting things to point out. This dip right here is this is where the automatic off-the-top transfer to the State Highway Patrol stops, and that's why you see the change. This allows it to grow at the maximum level, and then they reach their cap, and then the off-the-top stops to the State Patrol because they've hit their maximum. But that's a key. This is because if you stop the general fund transfers, there's 1 year where you have to make up for all the projects that are in the queue, at the federal level especially, and so that's what happens with that. The CAC and TAC looked at these. I guess I'll just leave it on this one. And staff and we all recommend use of assuming that the general fund transfers do occur, but that they do not grow at the 3% level of inflation. This is the statewide totals. We will be in the future bringing back to you the PPACG's portion of the statewide total that is reasonably expected to be available to us. At that point, we will also be approaching the RTA CAC and RTA board about what assumptions we should make about a renewal of the RTA to get a fuller picture of funding. So this is just a recommendation on the statewide funding levels, and you'll be seeing this again probably mid-summer, mid to end of summer with the regional control totals.
Commissioner Gruen.
Tom, do you recall, didn't the commission approve that green line last month?
I don't believe there was action on that last month. Was there, Les? There was some discussion about it.
Didn't we focus on the green line?
I can't help you there.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
The one other point, when we do our fiscal constraints, we have to do it in the value of the dollars. And so this chart actually shows what the value of the funding, the purchasing power of the funding is forecast to be, assuming that inflation continues, costs continue to increase at the rate they are. So while we don't have enough funding for transportation now, by 2040 we have about half as much, depending on which scenario, and that we also have about 50% more people and 50% more traffic. So we cut our purchasing power in half and grow our population and traffic by 50%. So that is just to give you a highlight of where we're going with our next long-range plan. That is it in a summary.
Okay. So what you're looking for today from us
is a recommendation on which of these scenario funding forecasts to recommend be adopted by the Transportation Commission.
And
the PPACG staff, TAC, and CAC all recommend the squares. I think that's blue. It's blue on my screen here. I don't know what color it really is up there.
My It makes sense to me that we would perhaps be using the same funding projections as CDOT.
Well, they will be approving. Was unaware that they'd had a discussion at the commission. That's a little jump in the queue, but.
It's on the staff agenda for discussion.
So do we want to hold this for 30 days, or do we need to go with them with our recommendation?
But yeah, it's not up there.
It's at 2040 where the shit's
Friday, you may want to hear from this board so we can have direction, support.
Okay.
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 And again, the staff, the CAC and the TAC, all recommend
The blue square.
Square. Do we have a motion?
Move approval? Fine, Dodge Regional. Motion to recommend that the Colorado Transportation Commission utilize the 2040 federal and state funding levels highlighted as MAP 21 revenue scenario number 1 baseline without 3% annual general fund increase in attachment 2.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
6D, Colorado Health Benefit Exchange Application. This would be Lisa H. And Rob said I could do that.
Rob Yeah, we used to.
We are shifting gears here, folks, so this.
Yeah, I promise I won't talk about roads or grounds or water quality, just health insurance. So I'm Lisa Hietala, and I'm part of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Area Agency on Aging. And my little section of the world down here is the SHIP program, which is the State Health Insurance Counseling Program, and have been part of that for about 20 years. We're going on our 21st year now. What I wanted to visit with you about today is a memo that was put in your packet about the Colorado Health Benefits Exchange, which is something that's coming to pass because of the Affordable Care Act. Colorado has chosen to manage this within the state and has set up this board to get this project going. The PPACG currently houses the SHIP program for a number of counties. We started out with 3, Park, El Paso, and Teller counties, and have grown to 10 different counties now because of the quality of service and the number of people we have been able to serve. So when the talk came about the COBE, or the Colorado Health Benefits Exchange, and having a trusted source and a neutral source to help people manage this health insurance choice that they're going to have to make starting in October, we thought that it was a really good fit for the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. Again, we think that it is, we think that it's a good fit because we already do what they are describing in the proposal as navigating the insurance maze and product. We've done it for, as I said, more than 20 years, and we are the most successful SHIP in the state, with numbers exceeding even the Denver metro area. So we projected that if we partner with other entities around our area, Peak Vista is very interested in becoming a assistant site, that we could, in the first year of the grant, see about 6,800 people. And I know that that sounds like a lot of people, but that would be in the 10 counties that we currently serve as a SHIP. So we would not be adding additional services per se, just expanding on what we already do in those areas. And it is initially a 2-year project, but the number of people that we feel like we could reach is because of an educational piece and then a one-on-one counseling, which COBE is requiring. So what we would do is use the current SHIP model that's been successful for us and have, instead of a Medicare 101, have a COBE 101 around the areas that we're serving, and then offer to support with personnel and COBE counselors, I guess, in the area to help people navigate this insurance system that's going to be new for everybody. We have great ideas to reach larger numbers, and we think in the initial flow we're going to see that big push because everybody's going to be kind of thinking they have to do this health insurance thing, and we see that that might in the second year probably reduce by about 40%. We have other communities that have contacted me showing an interest in continuing this. So again, I don't think it's going to be an extension of a lot of additional personnel, but it certainly would fit the mission that the SHIP program has under PPACG now. Did I miss anything, my boss? My boss is?
I'll let you know later.
Okay. I think I covered my notes, but just to kind of refresh you, initially we started with El Paso, Teller, and Park counties. And because of the reduction in quality of service and the numbers, we have now picked up Hinsdale, Chaffee, Custer, Fremont Lake, and most recently, starting April 1st, Huerfano, or Herfano, as you might call it.
Don't tell them that.
No. And Los Animas. And I think that we are going to be successful in partnering with other organizations to help with office space, to help with, some of the overhead costs that might be involved in this.
So my biggest question is, what's this going to cost PPACG?
Well, that's a good question. Thank you. I knew I left out the money part of that.
Yeah, I had your back.
Thank you, Rob. Actually, this is supposed to be a fully funded project by the feds, by the COBE, and it doesn't. I'm sorry? Thank you. He said for the first year only. No, it is actually funded on paper for the first 2 years, and then it is supposed to look at moving towards being self-supporting. But when we were talking, when we were in talks with Peak Vista, one of the board members at Peak Vista is also on the COBE board, and they're saying that they will continue to have base funding under the federal mandate. So it should be budget neutral for PPACG, and they do build in administrative fees to take care of the administration of the program. And I think that the cost involved would be nil. I mean, there's not even an in-kind match required for this money, which is kind of a good thing.
Yeah, because we don't have to do it if we don't want to. Rob?
Yeah, just to finish the thought, and Lisa's covered all the bases. The request here is, can we apply for the grant, or to be the COBE site and a hub? We'll be back to the board with obviously a budget amendment. It's not in your budget right now, so then we will know, because we're still figuring out how much we think it would cost us to do under the federal grant with the state and our partners. We haven't negotiated everything with our partners. Problem is, they issued this RFP for the COBE February 22nd, as you see in your memo. They want them all back April 8th, and so we're in a little bit of a fire drill. Our partners have been great. As Lisa said, we have experience doing insurance navigation, and we have for 20 years. But the dollars and cents, we don't know exactly. We don't have that for you today. But in our budget amendment, probably in May or June, we have some other budget amendments we need to bring to you, but this would be one of them. So that would be your chance to say, boy, this is going to cost PPACG $1, $100, $10,000. We don't know yet. And I agree with Lisa. I think it's revenue neutral for the board and the local governments. But as you all know, we look out beyond 2 years or 1 year that we'll certainly have in the agreement, if we get that far, get out of jail free, get out of the agreement, because if it turns into an unfunded mandate, we don't like those. I know Lisa doesn't like those. We do that enough for our friends at the state. As she said, we've picked up. We keep picking up counties because we can, but we're probably at our stretch point.
Yeah, and we really are at our stretch point without adding any additional SHIP counselors. And we use, just in our office, we have 3 trained SHIP volunteers and 2 paid SHIP staff, but half of that person, one of the SHIP paid staff, is also under a contract to do the Medicare fraud program. So she's rounding up the manuals and the guidelines for a fraud program for the entire state. So we do a lot with a few people, but yeah, this would be pushing the limits.
Okay. So you're looking for approval to submit an application?
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Oh, I was going to move for approval, but I think it's a bunch. Second? I'll second it. Yeah.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to information items. 7A, E-tip introduction, Craig Casper.
This has been a multi-year ongoing process. If you all, I picked the 1 month where we don't have a tip amendment, but you remember our tip amendments where it's a PDF with a table that's really not understandable. We've been working for a couple of years to get past that and create something that is a little more understandable. What we're going to is more of an online interactive type tip. This would be the landing page when we go live with it. It would provide an overview of the tip. There would be a report library, and when it connects, that would hold the tables, would hold sections, would hold like quarterly project status reports, would hold our end-of-year reports that we need. The tip would be searchable, because if you don't know the name of the project or you don't know the road or some of the other things right now, it's really hard to come up with a project. So our tip would be searchable by agency. This is a list of everybody that has projects in our area. By type of work, if you want to see, is it adding bookmobiles, is it designing bridges? So you search it by type of work, search it by year, search by the source, whether it's federal, state, local. Funding type, to be more specific, CMAQ, TE, whatever, PPRTA, because we have to have our PPRTA projects. So you could put search for the projects that way. And then when you find the project, you can generate a report of that project. Each project will have its own 2-page report. The key is there's also allow public commenting. So if there's public comments on, somebody has some questions or a comment on the project, we'll have a place for them to do that. One of our key upgrades, though, is because people have a hard time understanding the project, is opening the map. And what we have this, what we've done is embed Google Earth into our webpage. Google Earth had been a standalone program, and we have been using it, but one of the problems with that is once you put the file out there, if the file changes, it's still out there as a bad file. So this way, we maintain control of the files, and whatever is showed is what we have approved. You can turn on all the TIP projects around the region. You can see down here we have signal projects. There's a park and ride project structure right there. When you click on those projects, it gives you a summary detail and another link to what the project is. We also have the map is searchable too if you want to search by area, by sponsor. Let's clear all those. And look at CETA projects. We've been talking about Cimarron and Fillmore, so we can turn those 2 projects on. Click one of the tables to give a summary of that and a link to the project. And then you click the airplane, and you get a tour of the project that shows physically what the project is. So you can see this is a single point interchange. We don't show the ramp, the loop ramp that was trying to be described.
Oh, that's sweet.
And it gives a tour of it. And we can, at the same time as we're showing these projects, we can, minimize this, we can show other environmental data. So if you want to see, well, what are some of the hazards? Are there any floodplains? And so it'll load the floodplains, although with this tour, creates a kind of a funkiness. Yeah.
Better buy a boat.
See that blue. Well, that would interfere with our parks. One of our, what this also allows us to do is when we are collaborating with other agencies, state agencies, local agencies on development, we had a hard time with agreements of the data. And so this allows us that any data they can, agency A can share with B. This way they share with us and we can put it on our web, and it becomes a resource then for everybody to use, all the local entities, all the state entities in our area. We'll clear all the overlays. Let's do sponsor. And you can, other thing you can see is Cimarron in conjunction with 8th Street, and see how those 2 relate. And you can see when it closes off. Sorry, I'm on the wireless connection. It's kind of slow, but you can see how the 8th Street single point interacts with the single point at Cimarron. We can go to Fillmore. And although we don't have the cool moving cars that CDOT showed earlier, we still show what the project is. And you can see how Chestnut is related. See how, so we're trying to show communicate better with the public what the projects are. So we think this is a step up from the table, PDF table that we have now.
Yeah.
So, Greg, technology is a wonderful thing, and we've got to embrace it and all those good things, but it comes with a price tag.
We use interns to build these. They're happy to do it because it gets them experience. They get a say, and they get to see, hey, I did this. You can go on the web and see it.
Okay.
What we do need, though, are from local entities changes, because one of the projects I found, working with City of Colorado Springs, we had a roundabout project. Well, they had a public meeting. It's not a round project anymore. It's an oval project. And so we need the new design from them that we can then give to our interns to have them tweak the design. So it requires more communication with our local entities.
Just FYI, roundabouts are almost impossible to move snow out of.
Mayor Snyder.
And it's a great program because we just recently hired one of your former interns.
Yes, you
He's
did.
doing all this work for us in our family.
Yes, you did. So
We're a good training ground.
yes, we do that. So this is where we're going. We hope to have it live in the next month or two. We're having getting CDOT STIP. One of the other things that benefits of this is we want to connect CDOT STIP with our TIP electronically, so there's no hand keying required, so that when there's TIP amendments that come through, it's an automatic transfer. There's less chance of error with that, and we're working on those connections now. So, but as going to price, we're $18,000 into this project now, not counting interns because intern is part of a different budget. But so.
Okay.
Excellent.
Any
Very
other questions?
cool.
Thank you very much.
When you started, I thought, well, there are about 20 people in the region that would use this, and by the time you were done, I thought, no, I could see where that would.
Yep, it's because we can overlay all the data. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Ask your grandkids; they'll help you with it.
Thanks. 7B, enhanced NHS letter from CDOT.
We received, as you recall, in January, you recommended to Federal Highway additions to the National Highway System. MAP 21 required all principal arterials to be part of the enhanced National Highway System. You made some recommendations to the Federal Highway. CDOT is in the process of developing their recommendations to Federal Highway on the enhanced NHS. They sent a letter asking for some clarifications on some of the routes that we recommended. PPACG staff is working with the local entities to address those. You, in all likelihood, will see something next month. So, any other questions?
Moving on.
Thank you.
7C, State Transportation Advisory Committee agenda and discussion. We have our commissioner here. We have our alternate that will be attending this Friday. What do we have coming up?
Craig and I can probably do that.
Okay.
On the table, you have the stack agenda, which we got either Friday or Monday. Things the board's already talked about, the MAP 21 funding programs, as well as the ramp update are probably of most interest. And then the third, second level interest is the fiscal year 14 budget from CDOT to see if there's any changes in any of our programs. We anticipate some that we'll have to decipher and see how it filters down to our TIP, all the different line items that we have. So we'll report back on that. It's only a 10-minute item, so maybe it's just a report that it's adopted. And then finally, the revenue projections, which we talked earlier about the 2040 long-range plan revenue projections.
Okay.
I think those are the ones of note. Craig, any others?
So they can do 10-minute.
Sounds good.
That's only what.
Everybody's welcome to attend, by the way.
We have a list.
7D, PPACG 2012 annual report.
Yes, technology. We're embracing. And before I get into the annual report, I just want to point out the homepage to all of you. We've been doing some streamlining of the homepage to make it more sort of user-friendly. So you see on the left, you can actually access the annual report above the fold. We also have board meeting materials for you guys and gals, very easily found. So you all just click on Board of Directors meeting materials, you get the board packet, and you can now view the most recent board meeting and see all yourselves in almost real time, because we'll have that up on the homepage as well every month. So you can view this meeting probably this afternoon if you have an interest in that. And then you can see online resources on the right, the 2 networks of care for seniors and the military network of care. You can check that out. And then the very cool Google Earth transportation planning project that Craig just talked about. You can also check that out as well. And then the legislative tracker and so forth. So, you know, we're putting a lot of good stuff on the homepage to make it easier for people to find some of the stuff that we really want to highlight. Annual report. I have to start by saying thank you to Commissioner Clark for making your wonderful videographer and editor, Nancy Nelson, available to us, because we would not have been able to produce this without her. We have no budget. When it came time to plan for the annual report, Rob said, go for it, Dallas, but you have no budget. So basically I decided that because we really want to try to humanize our work, I think, a lot of people don't really understand what COGs do. Average person, when you say MPO or COG, you know, they're like, what? And since I've been here, I've been so impressed with the impact that we actually have on the 600,000 plus people of this region in every single program that we're involved in. And that's really what we wanted to accomplish with this annual report, was to communicate that impact to a much broader audience. So, you know, we're going to have lots of hard copies of it. If you guys and gals would like to help us with marketing, and if you're making presentations to talk about your role as PPACG board members, we would love for you to hand the annual report out. It's also available on YouTube. And Rob, I don't know if we have time to really play any of it.
Board prerogative, 12 minutes.
Oh, no.
But we also have
I agree with
copies,
whoever
so
said
you
no.
all are welcome to view it.
Maybe just send out the link,
Okay.
Alice, so that everybody has it.
Okay. And you've got hard copies as well.
We've got 60 seconds worth here.
60 seconds?
And this was playing before the meeting began.
So is the report available as like a PDF or something?
The video is available, but I can make the script available as well.
It's another beautiful day in the Pikes Peak region as the men, women, and children who call this special place home go about their lives. The quality of life here is what draws us, and the certainty that there's no other place quite like it makes us stay. Preserving the quality of life in our region is the driving force for those who serve the people of El Paso, Teller, and Park counties as elected officials and as members of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments.
We've really all pulled together as a region, and I think that Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments is one of those agencies that brings everyone to the same table to discuss, prioritize, make sure that we really take into consideration both urban and rural needs, and make sure that we take all of those into the big picture as we prioritize various projects that can be anything from transportation, senior services, the challenges we face in disaster recovery, and certainly our water and air quality in the environment.
2012 was an outstanding year for the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, our member governments, and the citizens of the region. Key amongst those were secure funding for I-25 widening through the region. At long last, we're getting that project done. That'll be accomplished in the next year. We also developed online resources for seniors and the military community to make sure they had all the resources they need so they can get information and get services for their service members or the seniors that they know.
Thanks.
I don't know if we can stop it. Oh, we can't.
Excellent.
Can't stop it.
Very good.
So you all have the DVDs in front of you, and we'll send the link out for all this.
Where's mine?
Thank you, Dallas. New and exciting.
And the cost was just right.
We'll talk about that for next year.
Yes, I know. There's. We'll see.
Nancy's boss said we need to talk if this is going to be.
Well, this is one I can show them at United Way and say, this is what you need.
So item 8, communication items. Anything here we need to?
Yes, the first item, we sent the link to all sorts of information. Kate wasn't able to stay. Kate Hatton, who runs our military impact planning program, wanted the board to consider one of two actions. The Army has done, as you see, the environmental assessment to a little quantification of if they add 3,000 troops or we lose 8,000 troops or something in between. The former Chamber of Commerce, the Colorado Springs Regional Business Alliance, they've developed a letter that either this board could endorse and say, we'll fill one out for our board chair to sign, or you can do a resolution similar to what you did for the CAB or the Combat Aviation Brigade, because this board commented on that environmental assessment process. Either of those two options, we're asking the board to say, yes, we would support maybe 3,000 more troops versus the departure of 8,000 troops. We have some of the factoids we can put in there. The range from, on the positive side, if it's 3,000 troops, that would translate to about 4,350 new jobs in the region. Conversely, taking 8,000 troops away, it's a total loss of about 11,600. So somewhere in that bad.
I think my preference would be that we do the resolution. One reason being El Paso County is submitting the form letter already, so this would give a different look to something. Comments? We okay with that?
Okay with that.
I see this as not an action item.
Right. Concurrence, and we'll get it. We can email it to everyone, and the board can sign it. Board chair.
Great.
Great.
B is the legislative tracker.
You all have before you a new and improved legislative tracker with all kinds of cool colors, and hopefully it's much clearer for you all to read. We basically followed your guidance in kind of reformatting it. Over the last month, there hasn't been a lot of news. On the back, you will see, though, that, the governor signed, let's see which one. Governor signed HB 1008. That's the extending veterans' preference in state hiring to the spouse of a disabled veteran. A couple of other bills were postponed indefinitely. And I think that Guy and Rich actually want to update you very quickly on a couple of bills of interest to their programs.
Absolutely.
House Bill 1191 is on page 2. It's the second bill under the environment. It is concerning grants for domestic wastewater treatment plants. This bill actually will provide $15 million in grants to kind of help wastewater treatment plants comply with the nutrients regulations that were passed last year. I'm requesting that the board go ahead and support this bill. The cost for the treatment plants to comply with those regulations, I mean, it varies in our region. It can be anywhere between $3 million to like $9 to $10 million, and it affects CSU, Upper Monument, Wastewater Treatment Facility, Tri-Lakes, Security, Wide Field. It has already passed the House. It has just been introduced in the Senate. The CML and CCI both also support this bill.
Do we need a motion for that, or do we just need to kind of head nod agree?
I think we better do head nods just to have, because of how it's advertised.
15 million isn't going to go very far, though.
Nope.
Better than none.
Anything else, Rich?
No, that was it.
Guy?
Try to get legalized gambling in Park County.
Good morning. You will see at the bottom of the first page of your legislative tracker 2 bills for the Area Agency on Aging. I want to do the bottom one first, Senate Bill 111. At last month's board meeting, there was a request for more information regarding that bill, and specifically to find out who would be required to do the reporting. And I believe that information has been attached to your legislative tracker for your review. The bill immediately above that, Senate Bill 127, which is would increase funds for area agencies on aging, is still on track. There has been discussion about whether or not it would be better to actually run a bill or to increase a line in the general fund budget, and the preference of the AAAs is to run the bill because that money would be more protected, but that discussion is taking place at the state level. Are there any questions?
Questions for Guy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item C is board member training for, this is Dave Turley. We won't be doing this today. For those of you that are going electronic, though, okay, fair enough.
Well, I will just say to that, a couple of weeks ago I came down and we did training for, I think we had 6 or 7 people here and went through, it didn't take long, so what we wanted to do, and we might see if we can get it in the next time, maybe 15 minutes, maybe not even take that long, kind of go through quickly the kinds of things that we're able to do.
Maybe we can even schedule that as before the meeting. I don't know how many folks' schedules allow that, but.
Like half hour or something?
Yeah, you said
15 minutes?
So if we got here around 8:30 or so,
Yeah.
that would be.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Coffee be ready, all that good stuff, yeah.
We get Norm a larger computer?
Thought you did.
What's a desk to match it?
Member entity announcements. Yes, Mayor Turley.
2 things. On Monday, I signed a letter to Jerry Marr in the Forest Service concerning Rampart Range Road in its entirety from above Woodland Park down to Garden of the Gods, requesting that they really consider trying to get that open, just in case there was any kind of issues on US 24, even though that's not a great road for driving. It would give us access, and we'd rather have that open in advance rather than trying to work that, on it, because it would be something that would happen very quickly if we needed to use that. So and I think we sent a copy of it down to PPACG for the staff and to a couple other folks. So we've requested that.
If I might interrupt,
Please.
I made a side comment to Commissioner Clark earlier in the meeting. It said at some point soon, like in the next hour or next week or so, we should probably be thinking about an alternative to Highway 24 and start that planning process. And I don't know whether that's at that minimum level or a much greater level or what that requires, but as a regional transportation planning agency, it might be something that Craig wants to jump up and be at the front of.
I've actually had a couple of email exchanges with Scott Dulles from Forest Service and Brent Bott, who is the Pikes Peak Ranger, about.
Retired.
Is he?
Yeah.
He's still listed as the.
Email still works. Huh?
Yeah, his email still works.
Maybe he's a consultant.
Okay, well,
Yeah, so.
he's
Yep.
retired, so.
And so we are in the process of putting that together. We just make sure that, City of Colorado Springs and, everybody is okay with moving forward with this as a.
The counties in particular.
And are you talking about the connection off of Loy Creek Road there as it heads up? Because that portion is, amazingly enough, El Paso County maintenance, and so we need to be involved in that process as well. It's very strange, but that's just the way it is. There's a small section of El Paso County up there. The other thing I want to keep open with the Forest Service is that with the increased traffic on that road, it's going to increase our maintenance. Already, the big trucks and stuff going up and down there have created some problems along there. So,
I'll make sure you see a
all of
copy
us
of
to
that.
be in there, but I'm very much in favor of that.
Okay.
And one other quick comment. We talk about road construction, a lot of things with CDOT. I'd just like to compliment CDOT. On February the 1st, we had an accident. It wasn't in Woodland Park, but it was in the Woodland Park Broad area, where one of our high school students was killed in an accident in front of on US 24 in front of the Pikes Peak Regional Hospital. As a result of that, CDOT quickly has reviewed that intersection, done a warrant review, and is making some adjustments that will be implemented by the middle of April. So just a quick response, and I think, not overreacting, but a very responsible review of that intersection. I just want to thank the CDOT for that.
Thank you. Mayor Snyder.
I just wanted to publicly praise and thank Commissioner Clark for all of her work on flood mitigation. I mean, practically before the fire was even out, from the WARS study to lobby, working with CDOT, to working with our national representatives, you've just done a stellar job. And I really,
Right.
on behalf of Manitou, and I think I can speak for the other communities up the pass, you've been just a lifesaver, and thank
Well,
you.
we're gonna continue hammering it. We were successful too in getting a resolution passed through our Public Safety Committee, through National Association of Counties. It's made their priorities list to change the Stafford Act, which is going to be monumental, but to change the Stafford Act designation for disasters to include up to 2 years of flooding for post-fire mitigation.
Sure, because that's always a big problem.
So I'll send the link to you. It's on NACO's national priorities list, but we carried it through successfully, unanimously through both the board and the committee. So,
Good job.
so it'll be helpful.
That just takes that act of Congress.
Yeah, it'll take an act of Congress, yeah, to do.
Keith, did you have something?
Well, I'll know later.
If you don't, that's okay. I just thought I saw your hand.
Well, possibly by later tonight, I may be the mayor. It's up to my board. My mayor resigned in a tiff, so.
It's usually how that works unless they're moving.
Tax incremental finance.
No, our water tower froze. I don't know if you people
Right.
heard about it. We had a 105-ton ice cube. CIRSA covered the cost, but there were some expenses in that they did not cover. We have a part-time employee that jumped in with his own equipment on his own time to ensure that it happened on time and as quickly as possible. We, as a board, I made the motion to give him a $500 bonus, and my mayor had a cow. So he quit.
Fair enough. Well, let us know.
Huh?
The mayor quit?
He quit. He thought it was a waste of taxpayers' money. I tried to explain to him that to put that out for bid and contract and try and get it done would have added weeks to the project, and that it was to expedite it. It's handled, it's fixed, it's all back together, everybody's online. We had minimal people losses. We had tons of volunteers out there crawling in crawl spaces, thawing pipes, getting people back together, and we made it through.
Good.
So are you the new mayor then?
We'll know tonight.
I'll know tonight. I've been acting mayor for a month. So we also have a company called Skybeam coming where they want to negotiate putting a antenna on the tower, which I can coordinate with.
Go for it. They write you a check.
Well, exactly. Plus,
For the $500 anyway.
well, and plus we have Calhan Wireless and Toma Feed and Supply out of Calhan that want to buy some advertising on a sign, so we'll generate some more income there. Things are changing and trying to bring them kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Got into buildings that people told me I'd never be able to get into. Found some old town records. We'll go over those at some point privately.
That didn't sound good.
But things are changing, slowly but surely. So I
Good.
think it's a good positive change.
Good.
I have good communication with Simla and Callahan both, so the three little towns can kind of pull together and help each other.
Very good. Good news. Norm and I were also back in Washington, D.C. at the NACO National Association of Counties Legislative Conference, and one morning we found ourselves seated next to each other in a MAP 21 presentation, and it was very useful. The more I hear that, the more I think, oh, okay, at least I understand the terms now. So, yeah.
Appreciate the federal government changing the acronym every time we figure it out. So.
Change code.
And you have your meeting schedule, and we are adjourned. Oh, man.